Chapter 484. This time around, cultivators from the Heavenly Mountain discovered the entrance to the Heavenly Secret Realm. They didn't dare to take the risk due to their lack of strength, and decided to exchange it for a fortune. Hence, experts from the various major sects and clans were attracted here. On the cliff halfway up the mountain, dazzling figures appeared one after another, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. If those who appeared on the cliff halfway up the mountain before were all geniuses, then those who appeared now were all geniuses, the most dazzling experts of the various major powers. Yin clan, Yin Cheng's elder brother Yin Ting arrived. Yin Ting and Yin Cheng were both demon-level geniuses. Yin Ting's cultivation base was stronger while Yin Cheng's cultivation speed was faster. Both of them had extraordinary statuses in the Yin clan. Jin Yan from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan was the cousin of Jin Zhan. His combat prowess far surpassed Jin Zhan. Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan was equally famous as Jin Yan. Jian Jingtian. His swordsmanship was unparalleled, and was known as the #1 genius swordsman of the Heaven-Shocking Sword sect. Other than them, those from the other major powers were also extremely dazzling. They didn't appear during the treasure-seizing assembly, but when the news of the Heavenly Mountain mysterious realm spread, none of them wanted to miss it. The Heavenly Mountain range was mysterious and unfathomable. In the Heavenly Mountain mysterious realm, great opportunities would appear. Jin Yan landed on the ground. His gaze landed on Jin Zhan as he asked, "I heard that you were injured by someone. Who was that person?" Jin Zhan lowered his head when he heard this. He replied in a low voice, "That person claimed to be surnamed Qin. I wonder what his name is." He was clad in white. "How's his cultivation base?" Jin Yan asked. He stared at Jin Zhan. He heard that this person's cultivation base was at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. However, he wanted to hear it from Jin Zhan personally. "It seems like he's at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper." Jin Zhan found it hard to speak. A person at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper didn't even need to make a move to suppress him with just a few steps. This battle was a stain on his reputation. "If he appears, inform me." Jin Yan faintly spoke, feeling a little disappointed in his heart. Jin Zhan was also one of the geniuses the Jin clan nurtured. Yet he was actually suppressed by someone at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. After this matter happened, Jin Zhan didn't dare to report it back to the Jin clan. At the same time, Yin Ting slowly walked to the front of Yin Cheng, his gaze fixated on Yin Cheng as he asked, "Just my will alone is enough to defeat you?" "Yes, that person's will is very strong. It directly charged into my mind." Yin Cheng also felt slightly ashamed as he nodded his head. Qin Wentian's attack was too bizarre. It ignored everything and directly launched a mental attack on him. "You should have ordered people to keep an eye on him, right?" Yin Ting clearly understood Yin Cheng very well. And Yin Cheng nodded. "Not confident?" Yin Ting asked again. "That man is proficient in divine inscriptions. Before this, he used divine inscriptions to kill Grandmaster Qiu in the cavern. Right now, my subordinates are only keeping an eye on him, and have yet to act recklessly." Yin Cheng replied, "You two, work together to take him down, then meet up with me." Yin Ting stared at the two people behind him as he spoke. The two of them turned their gazes onto Yin Cheng, only to see Yin Cheng instructing the person beside him. That person immediately brought Yin Ting and his companion away. After giving the order, everyone's gazes turned to the middle-aged man who discovered the mysterious realm. He had a pair of eagle eyes. "Since everyone is here, let's move out." At this moment, Shang Yu spoke. Everyone nodded their heads. Before this, they all chose to stay here because they all paid an equal price for this middle-aged man to lead the way. It was impossible for any of them to head out alone. Hence, they came to an agreement. The various powers would head to their respective clans or sects to inform others to come here. However, there was one thing they had to agree on. The cultivation bases of those who came here could only be at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. They all knew that after stepping into the mysterious realm, if there were any fortuitous encounters or good fortune, the various powers that seemed to be on friendly terms with each other might turn against each other and start a war. Hence, they had to establish a balance. They mustn't allow one party to suppress the other party's strength to a certain level. This would depend on the methods of the various powers. Naturally, They also understood that the stronger experts of the various powers would also be waiting outside the mysterious realm. If there were any uncontrollable situations or heaven-defying treasures appearing, they would send people out to report the situation. After which, the various powers would send even stronger experts to enter the mysterious realm. These were the rules set by the strongest powers in the Xian King city. As for the other powers, they didn't even have the qualifications to participate. The various powers would naturally send people to guard the entrance of the mysterious realm. Everyone please. That eagle-eyed middle-aged man led the way, leading the way. The spectators from afar stared at him. Yet none of them dared to get too close. They were all silently cursing at how tyrannical the various powers were. Every time a mysterious realm appeared, it would become a training ground for them. Ordinary people wouldn't even have a chance to participate. Qin Wentian stared at the sky. A vast amount of experts could be felt flying through the air. At the same time, he could faintly sense a few powerful auras boring down on him. There were a total of 6 of them, and all of them had a cultivation base at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. Using such a powerful formation to deal with him, they truly thought highly of him. Since a mysterious realm has appeared, how can I not enter? Qin Wentian smiled. After which, he turned and sped away, speeding towards a certain direction with extreme speed. The experts in the dark naturally sensed Qin Wentian's movements. Their silhouettes also increased in speed as they sped towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's speed grew faster and faster, leaping past the mountain peak as he sped towards the bottom of a cliff that was shrouded in mist. Humph! The 6 experts coldly laughed as they sped towards the bottom of the cliff. At this moment, they were no longer concealing their presence. Their auras were all exposed as they sped towards Qin Wentian. An instant later, Qin Wentian stood on top of a gigantic boulder. Both sides of him were surrounded by precipitous cliffs. The other 6 experts also sped over, surrounding him as their astral novas manifested. Qin Wentian only felt his body sinking. That immense pressure bore down on him, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. Boom! A figure soared through the air, walking towards Qin Wentian. This caused the blood in Qin Wentian's body to seethe intensely, as though it was about to break out of his body. Die! A terrifying sword floated above the head of a figure in the air. The light from the sword was so bright that people couldn't even open their eyes. These people all rushed over at the same time, instantly erupting forth with the will of their mandates. This caused Qin Wentian to sigh in admiration at how terrifying the combined attacks of stellar martial cultivators were. In a one-on-one battle, although the will of one's mandate was strong, one could still use corresponding methods to deal with it. But when so many people appeared at the same time, the might they could unleash in an instant was sufficient to crush an opponent. This was especially so when Qin Wentian's cultivation base wasn't high. A demonic beast armor covered Qin Wentian's body as the demonic bloodline in his veins seethed, causing him to resemble the sovereign of demons. That handsome young man in white abruptly transformed into a demonic beast, becoming extremely demonic. The demon's sovereign astral soul appeared, instantly connecting with the heavenly dome. Astral light cascaded downwards as numerous terrifying demonic beasts manifested around Qin Wentian. These demonic beasts were all at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, and exuded a fearsome might, protecting Qin Wentian in the center, helping him to endure the pressure brought forth by the will of the various mandates. Summon astral souls. The eyes of the experts all gleamed with sharpness as they stared at Qin Wentian. After which one of them roared, "Do it!" As the sound of his voice faded, the various experts directly rushed out, lunging towards Qin Wentian who was surrounded by them. Their wills of mandates were sufficient to crush ordinary 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns to death. "All of you stay behind." Qin Wentian stared at the experts rushing over. A cold light flashed in his eyes as a sword-type astral nova appeared. With a flick of his palm, that astral nova directly pierced into the gigantic boulder. In an instant, the boulder was reduced to dust as the sound of swords rang out in the air. Beams of sword light ravaged the entire space, causing the gazes of the experts to stiffen as they hurriedly unleashed their innate techniques to defend against the attack. However, how fast were their bodies? The distance between them and Qin Wentian was already very close. Qin Wentian's summoned demonic beasts directly lunged towards them. At the same time, his palms continuously blasted out in the air, causing the bell chimes and the sword chimes to echo out simultaneously. The sword chimes were filled with killing intent, while the bell chimes were filled with killing intent. This was none other than the Heartbreak Ancient Bell. The 6 experts all felt their hearts pounding violently, as though they were no longer in control. Boom. At the same time, Qin Wentian stepped out as he executed the 7 Annihilations swordplay, killing with each step he took. The 6 experts clashed against the summoned demonic beasts. Their astral novas were all used to suppress the demonic beasts. The demonic beasts wouldn't be able to obstruct their advance. Die. Qin Wentian's palms continuously blasted out the Heartbreak Ancient Bell. Stepping out once more, an even more terrifying sword might gushed forth, causing the hearts of the 6 experts to palpitate violently. Qin Wentian brandished his astral nova and abruptly unsheathed it. He took a 3rd step forward as countless beams of sword light swept out. Bang! One of the summoned demonic beasts was slain by another expert. That expert stared at Qin Wentian as his killing intent surged forth. This young man actually gave them an intense sense of threat. However, at the same time, Qin Wentian took a 4th step. The boundless sword might transformed into a gigantic sword that slashed towards that expert. At the same time, a boundless sword intent cascaded downwards, seemingly under Qin Wentian's control. Each and every sword strike was filled with the intent to kill. This person held a large axe in his hand and chopped out, colliding with the huge sword. At the same time, both of them exploded. He felt the power wreaking havoc in his body and roared, "We can't let him continue accumulating power." PFFF, PFFF. Demonic beasts fell one after another. Qin Wentian's body slowly rose up and took the 5th step. When his step landed, the entire space had already turned into a forest of swords. The 6 great cultivators were all enveloped within. Their expressions were incomparably unsightly. This swordsmanship was too terrifying. Their bodies frenziedly rushed towards Qin Wentian. Yet they felt an incomparably fearsome resistance from the swords. Qin Wentian gripped his astral nova tightly, his cold eyes staring downwards as he took his 6th step. The sword forest in this space was filled with sword rain. After which, drops of blood rained down along with the sword chi. The 6 experts watched as their bodies gradually disintegrated under the sword will. All of them had looks of despair on their faces. Qin Wentian's astral novas returned to his body. With a wave of his hand, the interspatial ring floating in the air was collected by him. His silhouette flickered as he soared up into the air. At the instant he exited the precipice, Little Rascal immediately leapt into his embrace. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed, and then his figure flickered as he chased after the experts of the major forces. Chapter 485. The heavenly mountain range was mysterious and unfathomable, spanning over 10,000 miles. Ancient peaks were interconnected, and there were many danger zones. Occasionally, there would be a bewildering fog formation, and it was easy to fall into it. Not only that, in the depths of the heavenly mountain range, there would be powerful demonic beasts cultivating there. They wouldn't allow anyone to disturb them. Hence, no one dared to say that they were completely familiar with the heavenly mountain range. Even celestial phenomenon ascendants wouldn't be able to see the complete picture of the heavenly mountain range. On the contrary, there were some adventurers who would frequently venture into the depths of the heavenly mountain range, and would occasionally discover something. At this moment, the eagle-eyed middle-aged man who told everyone about the discovery of the heavenly mountain range led the experts from the various major powers to the depths of the heavenly mountain range. The air here was extremely thin, and there was a thick fog in the air, causing people to feel extremely uncomfortable. Occasionally, a gust of cold wind would blow by, causing people to feel a chill. We should already be in the depths of the heavenly mountain range. How much longer do we need? At this moment, someone stared at the eagle-eyed middle-aged man as he asked. If it was an ordinary place, we would have long been discovered. This place is extremely mysterious. If it wasn't for a stroke of good fortune, Even I wouldn't have been able to sense it. The eagle-eyed middle-aged man replied. He wasn't worried that these experts wouldn't fulfill their promise and kill him. Even if this matter was simple, these people wouldn't do such a thing. If not, in the future, if there were people who discovered treasures or secret realms in the heavenly mountain range, they wouldn't dare to say it out loud. Nobody would do such a foolish thing. This was also the reason why in the heavenly mountain treasure seizing assembly, those who wanted to seize treasures would engage in a life and death battle. For example, before this, there were many who targeted Qin Wentian, but these people wouldn't target the person who presented the treasures. Once this happened, the heavenly mountain treasure seizing assembly would only exist in name. Upon hearing the words of the eagle-eyed middle-aged man, the others nodded their heads and continued on their way. This group of people was extremely majestic. There were at least a few hundred of them. There were a total of 8 major powers participating, and each of them had at least 30 experts at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. As for those who weren't from the major powers, they couldn't afford to antagonize these existences, and they were also worried that they might encounter danger in the depths of the heavenly mountain range. Hence, they naturally didn't dare to follow them. However, there was one person who was silently following these experts. His perception was tracking him, but no one noticed him. After a period of time, everyone arrived at a mystical place. This place was filled with the spiritual chi of the heavenly mountain range. It was square-shaped and the 8 mountain peaks were extremely symmetrical, separated into 8 corners. In the center, there was a gigantic ancient mountain. This mountain sat on the ground, exuding an ancient aura, as though it had existed for countless years. "We're here." The eagle-eyed middle-aged man spoke, his words causing looks of bewilderment to flicker in the eyes of the crowd. After which, they only saw the eagle-eyed middle-aged man pointing to a certain location in the ancient mountain. "Look at that gigantic boulder at the waist of the mountain. It's shaped like a gate. If you hit it, you will be able to enter the mysterious realm." The crowd's eyes flickered with sharpness. This mystical realm was located within an ancient mountain, yet it was actually so miraculous. "Go and try." Incheng spoke to one of them. After that, the silhouette of one of them flickered as he dashed towards the gigantic boulder the eagle-eyed man was pointing at. In an instant, his silhouette vanished from the spot where he stood. It's true. The eyes of the crowd gleamed with sharpness. A mountain was actually the entrance to the mysterious realm? This was even more miraculous compared to the other mysterious realms they had encountered before. "Have you entered before?" Yinting asked the eagle-eyed middle-aged man. Naturally. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to see through the gate at all. "I just so happened to enter. The mysterious realm is incomparably vast and I was attacked by a 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Hence I immediately exited." "Right." Yinting nodded. With a wave of his hand, several yuan meteor stones flew towards the eagle-eyed middle-aged man. The leaders of the other powers all waved their hands as yuan meteor stones flew into the hands of the eagle-eyed middle-aged man, causing a radiant smile to appear on his face. These yuan meteor stones were sufficient for him to cultivate for a very long time. "I'll take my leave then." After keeping the yuan meteor stones, the eagle-eyed middle-aged man silently retreated. The others exchanged glances before their gazes landed on those from the central king's manor. Beside Shangyu, there was a young man exuding an imposing aura. This man was extremely famous in Xianqing City, Shangqi or Prince Qi. Back then, Yincheng wanted to curry favor with him, wanting to gift him an ancient halberd. This was the reason why he sought out Grandmaster Qi Yezi, resulting in a bloody incident that left a bad reputation for the Yin clan. "Prince Qi, everyone from the Central King's Manor, please enter first." Someone spoke. Shangqi nodded his head, waving his hands as several people entered the ancient mountain. Not too long after, the silhouettes all disappeared. Each power left behind 2 people to guard the entrance, causing the entire space to turn silent. There was no movement from within the ancient mountain. It was as though those people had vanished. It was extremely mysterious. After a period of time, the sound of wind could be heard from afar. "Who is it?" The guards at the entrance coldly snorted. However, they only saw a beam of light flying over, so fast that they couldn't even see its shadow. "Busy." The humming of a sword could be heard as a terrifying sword chi swept through the air, causing the guards to all retreat. After which, they only saw the entrance of the ancient mountain flickering with astral light as a silhouette directly walked into the ancient mountain. That's the power of teleportation. The guards exchanged glances, only to hear one of them asking, "Should we enter?" "No need, it's useless even if we enter." Although this person is proficient in teleportation, his aura isn't too strong. Given the strength of the people inside, they should be able to deal with him. "There's no need for us to worry," a person replied, his words causing the others to nod their heads. Most probably, it wouldn't be long before the experts from the various sects and clans arrived. Qin Wentian stepped into the ancient mountain, and the scene before him was instantly stunned. Blue skies, white clouds drifting about, mountains, rivers, and ancient trees. How could this be the interior of a mountain? It was clearly a vast spatial world. There's a hidden dimension within this ancient mountain. What kind of mountain is this? Qin Wentian murmured as he stepped out. If one didn't travel far, they would never know the wonders and vastness of the outside world. This trip to Granshang hadn't even lasted for long, but there were already so many new things appearing, toppling everything he knew. What could be hidden within this ancient mountain? Qin Wentian mused. His silhouette flickered rapidly, and the eyes of Little Rascal in his embrace shone brightly as it surveyed its surroundings, as though it was extremely interested. Although Little Rascal couldn't speak, its intellect wasn't any different from humans. It was extremely intelligent, and could clearly see everything that was happening in the outside world. "Little Rascal, it's all up to you now." Qin Wentian placed Little Rascal down. Little Rascal's eyes gleamed with a bright light as it surveyed its surroundings. An instant later it started sprinting madly, akin to a bolt of white lightning. Its speed was so fast that Qin Wentian had to use all his strength in order to keep up with it. Little Rascal brought Qin Wentian across a vast area. If this place was only as big as the ancient mountain on the outside, it was unknown how many miles they had traversed. Evidently, the vastness of this place couldn't be compared to the size of the ancient mountain on the outside world. At this moment, Little Rascal brought Qin Wentian to a mountain range. This mountain range was extremely winding, resembling the heavenly mountains on the outside world. There were mountains within the mountains, seas within the mountains, rivers within the plains. There's someone ahead. Qin Wentian could clearly sense the aura of a battle. Little Rascal and Qin Wentian instantly increased their speed as they advanced. After traversing several mountain ranges, Qin Wentian finally saw the silhouettes of people. "It's them." Qin Wentian narrowed his eyes as he continued sprinting forward. The two silhouettes that appeared in front of him were none other than the pair of martial siblings he had met during the treasure-seizing gathering. At that time, he had even given up a stalk of blood shadow Ganoderma to that female. When that female asked for his name, he merely replied that they were strangers who met by chance. There was no need to ask too much. Who would have thought that they would meet again so soon, and in this mysterious realm? Seems like they had already discovered this mysterious realm. Not only that, the injuries of that female might have originated from this mysterious realm. Qin Wentian mused. Naturally, there weren't only those martial siblings in front of him. The two of them were currently facing off against a ferocious demonic beast. This demonic beast was an azure ox. It was 5 meters tall and had a gigantic body. When it breathed out, a thunderous sound could be heard. Its 4 hooves were firmly rooted to the ground, giving off an intense pressure. This ox demon was a demonic beast at the peak of the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, and its aura was extremely terrifying. Demonic beasts were born with extremely powerful combat prowess. Under the same level of cultivation, their combat prowess would often be stronger than humans. Not only that, their life force was also exuberant, allowing them to endure beatings. Although there were injuries on the body of this ox demon, its aura didn't waver. On the other hand, the aura of the martial siblings was fluctuating slightly. Yaya. Little Rascal let out a series of sounds. Its adorable actions seemed to be telling Qin Wentian to look at the thing behind the ox demon. Qin Wentian naturally noticed the thing behind the ox demon. It was an ancient tree that towered up to the heavens. The roots of this ancient tree were intertwined, and its branches were intertwined. Its height was at least 100 meters, and it occupied an extremely large area. This ancient tree stood alone atop the ancient mountain, making it stand out from the masses. Its life force must be extraordinary. On top of the ancient tree, there were a few gigantic fruits. The color of these fruits was different from the rest. They were actually an earthen yellow in color. Not only that, they gave off an intense feeling of heaviness, as though these fruits were born from the condensation of the spiritual qi in this mountain range. What tree is this? Qin Wentian wasn't very familiar with ancient trees and spiritual grasses. If Mo Qingqing was here, she would definitely be able to recognize it easily, but obviously, he wouldn't be able to. However, with a powerful ox demon as its protector, and 2 5th-level heavenly dipper sovereigns fighting for it, it was obvious that this was an extraordinary item. The Marshall siblings naturally also noticed the arrival of Qin Wentian. The young man frowned, while the female had a look of joy on her face. She then spoke. "It's you, let's join forces to deal with this ox demon. This ox demon has consumed the great earth fruit, its attacks and defenses are both extremely terrifying, and its mandate is extremely tough to deal with." Great earth fruit? Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. Chapter 486. Qin Wentian scrutinized the fruits on the tree. They were yellow in color and exuded a sense of heaviness, as though they had swallowed the essence of the earth. This was indeed the legendary great earth fruit. In that case, the ancient tree in front of him was none other than the great earth fruit tree. The great earth fruit tree took 100 years to take root, 200 years to mature, and 300 years to bear the great earth fruit, absorbing the essence of the earth. No wonder the surroundings of this mountain seemed so desolate. It was because all the essence was absorbed by this tree. The ox demon guarding the great earth fruit tree was none other than the great earth green ox king. Human scram. The great earth green ox glanced at Qin Wentian as an incomparably heavy pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. In that instant, Qin Wentian felt as though he couldn't even lift his feet. That powerful mandate of great earth made him feel as though his entire body weighed a few thousand jin. The great earth green ox king had been guarding this place for hundreds of years. Now that the great earth fruit had bloomed, it naturally couldn't allow a human to snatch it away. It had already consumed a few of the great earth fruits on the tree. As for the rest, it would be a waste if it swallowed them all in one go. Hence, it wouldn't allow others to partake. The great earth fruit was born after absorbing the essence of the earth. Green Ox King, since you've already eaten the great earth fruit, you still want to keep the rest for yourself? Aren't you a little too greedy? The female berated. The ox demon stomped its front hooves on the ground, causing the earth to tremble violently. A terrifying fluctuation permeated the air, causing Qin Wentian to feel his internal organs trembling. Qin Wentian's countenance grew heavy. He didn't dare to underestimate this demon. The vitality of demonic beasts was extremely powerful, and their physiques were extremely sturdy. Their strength and defense were even more perfect compared to the human Wuxia. "My name is Ji Shui. This is my senior brother Su Feng. Do you know how I should address you now?" The female stared at Qin Wentian as she smiled. Qin Wentian replied. "Brother Qin, this great earth green ox king is able to create the great earth prison. Its mandate of great earth has reached the acme of perfection. If the three of us work together, it should be easier. I will control it, you help break through its defenses. My senior brother's attacks are more powerful, he will be the one to attack." Ji Shui smiled. "Sure." Qin Wentian nodded slightly. "All right, let's make our move." Ji Shui released her astral nova. It was actually an immortal binding rope. Instantly it swept out. The Azure Ox King seemed to know how powerful this astral nova was. With a roar, the earth trembled as incomparably sharp blades directly pierced out from the ground, wanting to penetrate the bodies of the three of them. Qin Wentian and the others soared up into the air. However, the Azure Ox King opened his mouth and spat out a terrifying prison that trapped the three of them. Break. Long spears appeared in the hands of Qin Wentian and Su Feng. Their attacks were terrifying, capable of penetrating through everything, directly breaking out of the prison. Ji Shui's body was covered in countless swords, piercing into every corner of the prison. With a thunderous boom, the prison was shattered. Her immortal binding chains directly shot towards the Azure Ox King, binding him tightly, giving him no way to evade. The immortal binding rope was like an invisible net. It didn't have much offensive power, but it was extremely tough. It couldn't be broken. Pung! The Azure Ox King soared up into the air. Jishua's body was also dragged along, but her strength was inferior to the Azure Ox King. Brother Qin, Jishua called out. At this moment, Qin Wentian had already broken out of the prison. His silhouette whistled through the air as a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth. A gigantic black sword appeared in his hands. The defense of this Azure Ox King was terrifying. Qin Wentian's sword sound attack wouldn't be able to kill it. The sword sound attack was sharp, fast and unpredictable, but its true offensive power was on the weaker side. It was easier to deal with the human Wuxia, but against a demonic beast like the Azure Ox King, it would be extremely difficult to kill it. In terms of pure attack power, the fusion of the mandate of force and the mandate of demonic beasts was clearly stronger. Qin Wentian's second-level mandate of force was the void shockwave ripples. When the void shatters blasted into the bodies of his opponents, it would be able to shatter everything within their bodies, killing through the air. Although the Azure Ox King's defense was strong, its speed was its weakness. Not only that, it was still restrained by the immortal binding rope. Upon seeing Qin Wentian lunging over, the Azure Ox King's gigantic eyes stared at Qin Wentian. With a roar of rage, Qin Wentian's body trembled violently, as though he was about to be torn apart. A terrifying gravitational force caused his body to sink downwards, causing him to be unable to unleash his speed. Powerful indeed. Qin Wentian stared at the Azure Ox King. Demonic qi gushed forth from his body as his bloodline thrummed. Stellar transposition. His silhouette directly appeared in front of the Azure Ox King as he slashed out with his gigantic sword. The Azure Ox King howled. Its entire body was enveloped by an earthen yellow light, transforming into a screen of light that resembled a statue. This was its supreme defense. Ordinary fifth-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't even be able to break through its defense, let alone kill it. Break. Qin Wentian coldly snorted. The incomparably heavy black gigantic sword directly slammed into the light screen, imbued with his will of swords. A terrifying shockwave of sharpness radiated outwards, shattering the light screen into pieces before disintegrating into nothingness. Even with Qin Wentian's strength, he only managed to shatter the screen of light. Although the aftershock of his attack blasted into the body of the Azure Ox King, it wasn't enough to cause it any serious injuries. However, Su Feng, who had been accumulating his strength, finally made his move. His entire person was like a bolt of lightning, descending from the skies. The tip of his long spear glowed with a golden light, instantly landing on the Azure Ox King's body. However, the speed of the long spear was simply too fast, directly penetrating through the Azure Ox King's head. Piercing sounds rang out as the long spear penetrated through everything. The Azure Ox King let out a roar of despair, causing the entire area to tremble violently. Su Feng pulled out his long spear, while Qin Wentian similarly retreated. The aura of the frenzied Azure Ox King grew weaker and weaker as an unwillingness flickered in his eyes. After which, he slammed into the ground with a thunderous boom. It's over. Jishua spoke in a low voice. This Azure Ox King was truly troublesome to deal with. Although her senior brother's attacks were powerful, he had been tangling with the Azure Ox King for too long. Although he could break through the Azure Ox King's defense, it was impossible for him to find an opportunity to kill it in a single strike. Who would have thought that Qin Wentian would be so powerful as well, breaking through the defense of the Azure Ox King with a single strike? Only with the cooperation of the three of them could they end the battle in such a short period of time. Awesome. Jishua turned and praised Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian didn't say anything. Their gazes shifted over, only to see that 2 great earth fruits had already been plucked from the great earth fruit tree. A snow-white puppy was lying on the ground, hugging a gigantic great earth fruit. Its appearance was extremely comical, and its jaws were unceasingly nibbling on one of the great earth fruits. Qin Wentian rolled his eyes. This little rascal, while he was fighting, this little fellow had already started to steal the fruits. Su Feng's silhouette flickered as he appeared above the great earth fruit tree, wanting to pluck the great earth fruits. Ji Shui also arrived at the great earth fruit tree, plucking one and tossed it over to Qin Wentian. 7 fruits, you and that little fellow will get 3, and the 2 of us will get 2 each. Su Feng frowned when he heard Ji Shui's words. But when he thought of the blood shadow Ganoderma, he didn't say anything and allowed Qin Wentian to take advantage of the situation. Although they could also capture the Azure Ox King, they would have to spend some effort to do so. Although this great earth fruit was extremely valuable, it wasn't too useful to them. However, at this moment, a raging wind gusted over from afar. 7 to 8 figures flashed through the air, and not long after, they arrived here. The person in the lead stared at Su Feng and Ji Shui as a strange light flashed in his eyes. Brother Su Feng, Miss Ji Shui, I didn't expect the 2 of you to be in this mysterious realm. That person clasped his hands, appearing extremely courteous. Behind him, there was another person staring at Qin Wentian as he transmitted his voiceover. After which, the eyes of that person flickered as he similarly turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian. So it turned out that this person was the one who had offended Shangyu before, and even tortured Yin Cheng and Jin Zhan. He actually managed to break through the defenses of the outer perimeter, and entered the mysterious realm. Xiaoyu from the Ecliptic sect. Su Feng stared at the young man in the air. This group of people was none other than the Ecliptic sect, a major power in Xianqing City. Xiaoyu was a demon-level genius of the Ecliptic sect. Seems like the other major powers had also discovered this mysterious realm, and entered it. Brother Su Feng, we discovered some miraculous treasures in the mysterious realm and suffered heavy losses. Over 10 of our brothers have fallen. Now that we've met the 2 of you, why don't we join forces? Xiaoyu spoke. Qin Wentian and the others also discovered that the auras of this group of people were extremely unstable, as though they had just experienced a great battle. The gazes of Su Feng and Ji Shui stiffened as they exchanged mutual glances, as though they were discussing their thoughts. After which Su Feng asked, "What did you discover?" "I'm not sure yet. The location of the mysterious realm is actually a Yuan meteor stone mine. Not only that, the astral energy within the mine was completely sucked dry, transforming into a stone mountain. The wind dried it up and transformed it into a cave dwelling. A terrifying aura emanated from it, and there are also a few extremely terrifying demonic beasts guarding it. My brothers were killed by them." Xiaoyu spoke, his words causing Su Feng and Ji Shui to silently muse in their hearts. Indeed, these people had also discovered the mysterious realm. Earlier, Ji Shui's injuries were all at the location Xiaoyu spoke of. After which, they went out to recuperate before exploring the mysterious realm again. However, they didn't dare to be as brazen as before, choosing to slowly explore it. If this mysterious realm is so powerful, even with the 2 of us, wouldn't it be difficult to deal with it? Su Feng probed. That place isn't hard to discover. Other than me, there would definitely be other powers that have sensed it as well. When they feel the pressure, they would temporarily join forces. However, if a supreme treasure really appears, there would definitely be fights over it. The reason why I invited the 2 of you here is to prepare for a rainy day. Xiaoyu slowly spoke. The people here weren't fools. Right. Su Feng nodded his head in agreement. He too wanted to investigate what was inside exactly. Brother Qin, how about we go together? Ji Shui turned her gaze to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian contemplated for a moment before nodding his head. If Xiaoyu and the other powers couldn't even take down the mysterious realm, his strength alone wouldn't be enough. This Ji Shui's personality wasn't bad. He could rest assured if he joined forces with her. Not only that, after obtaining the spatial brush, he had already inscribed a spatial scroll. That was his greatest reliance. Even if he encountered danger, he wouldn't fear it. Chapter 487. Xiaoyu was a heaven's chosen of the Ecliptic sect. Although he was arrogant, he wasn't a fool. Now that Ji Shui had invited Qin Wentian to join them, it clearly indicated that Qin Wentian's strength wasn't weak. In addition to the rumors he heard earlier, he naturally wouldn't obstruct Qin Wentian's strength. As for the grudge between Qin Wentian and the princess, that could be discussed after they snatched the treasure. In this world, There was no such thing as eternal enemies or friends. Since this is the case, let's move out. Xiaoyu spoke. After which, he turned and sped away. The speed of the group was extremely fast. Ji Shui flew beside Qin Wentian as she asked, "Brother Qin, which sect are you from? Why haven't we met before?" "I'm someone who went out to temper myself. I haven't been in Xian King City for a long time," Qin Wentian replied. "I see." Ji Shui nodded her head as she smiled. "Me and senior brother are both external disciples of the Qinghua Mountains. We're ashamed to say that we've never been able to enter the Qinghua Mountains. Brother Qin's talent is extraordinary. If you go and try, you might even have a chance to become Wuxia of the Qinghua Mountains." Qinghua Mountains. Qin Wentian was taken aback. Since this Xiaoyu was able to enter the Qinghua Mountains, it meant that he was from one of the strongest powers in Xian King City. However, it was obvious that he was extremely respectful towards Ji Shui and Su Feng, treating them as equals. But Ji Shui actually said that he was only an external disciple of the Qinghua Mountains. In that case, what power was this Qinghua Mountains from? How strong is the Qinghua Mountains in Xian King City? Qin Wentian casually asked, not thinking too much about it. However, his words caused Ji Shui to start. Even Xiaoyu, who was in front of them, turned his head to glance at him. Could it be that this fellow had just arrived in the Seven King Cities? He actually hadn't heard of the Qinghua Mountains before. Ji Shui casually laughed as she explained to Qin Wentian. The Qinghua Mountain isn't a power that belongs to the Xian King City. It's just that the Qinghua Mountain is located in the 7 royal cities of Grand Shang, and there's an outer mountain where the outer disciples of the Qinghua Mountain gather. And in the royal capital of Grand Shang, there's an inner mountain that's guarded by true disciples of the Qinghua Mountain. As for the real Qinghua Mountain, it is located in absolute Monarch Sanctuary, and is one of the 9 sects under the Glory Sect. They are able to recommend disciples into the Glory Sect, and once they are recommended, their status will not be too low. Ji Shui patiently explained, her words causing a look of surprise to flash in Qin Wentian's eyes. In that case, the status of the Qinghua Mountain is equivalent to the Grand Shang Empire? When he was in Grand Xia, he had heard of Junyu's identity before. Junyu was a disciple of an elder of the Royal Sacred Sect, and this elder was once a king of Grand Shang. Qin Wentian naturally understood what this signified. The Royal Sacred Sect was like a hegemon of an era. All the demon-level geniuses that appeared in Grand Shang would all join them. This Qinghua Mountain was the same as the Grand Shang Empire. That's right, the Qinghua Mountain is a hegemon of the Grand Shang Empire. If you compare it to the Xian King City, I naturally have no way to answer you directly. Ji Shui smiled. Qin Wentian nodded his head as his heart pounded. The selection process the Royal Sacred Sect had for geniuses was simply too terrifying. In this boundlessly vast territory, there were 3 empires, the Qinghua Mountain, and other powers similar to the Qinghua Mountain. These powers were all subordinates of the Royal Sacred Sect, and they would constantly send talents into the Royal Sacred Sect, nurturing fresh blood. At the end, those most outstanding demon-level geniuses would all join the Royal Sacred Sect. From this, one could very well imagine how terrifying the foundations of a power like this was. This was a true hegemon of Grand Xia. None of the transcendent powers in Grand Xia had such a selection system. Not only that, for these powers that sent talents to the Royal Sacred Sect, there was also an intense competition between them. The Royal Sacred Sect would definitely not allow such a competition to happen. The various transcendent powers would also do their best to nurture outstanding geniuses and send them to the Royal Sacred Sect, hoping that one day, they would become important characters of the Royal Sacred Sect. After generations of development, Qin Wentian could already imagine how intense the competition within the Royal Sacred Sect would be. This was because the geniuses were all from different powers. Brother Qin, I'm also not someone from a transcendent power, but after becoming an outer mountain disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, I already have an extraordinary status. If you can pass the inner mountain test and become a true disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, no one in the Xian King City would dare to touch you. Ji Shui casually smiled. Qin Wentian could naturally feel that Ji Shui's identity as an outer mountain disciple was already sufficient to cause the geniuses of the transcendent powers to respect her. Thank you for your guidance. Qin Wentian thanked as he silently noted it down in his heart. He wasn't in a hurry to join any of the transcendent powers. He already had a sacred royal medallion on him. It wasn't difficult for him to take the first step. Hence, he had to choose carefully. Ji Shui casually smiled as the two of them continued chatting. After some time, they arrived at a flat piece of land. The wind gusted on their bodies, causing them to feel a chill akin to knives. Qin Wentian turned his gaze ahead only to see a stone mine that spanned over 100 miles. However, just like what Xiaoyu had said, there wasn't even the slightest bit of astral energy within this stone mine. All of it had been devoured cleanly, and the stone mine that was as large as a mountain was dried up by the wind, turning into a pile of petrified rocks. When they arrived, Su Feng took out his long spear. His silhouette flickered as he transformed into a bolt of lightning, stabbing out with his long spear, causing sparks to fly in all directions. Su Feng retracted his spear. His gaze was extremely calm. His spear arts could be said to be extremely powerful, yet under his spear strike, he had only managed to break through the surface layer of the petrified rocks. If he were to forcefully destroy the petrified rocks, he didn't know how long it would take. As expected, it's still the same. Su Feng silently mused. His silhouette retreated back to his original location as he stared at the entrance of the stone mine. Within it, a strange aura could be felt, causing people to feel a sense of fear. Back then when he and Ji Shui entered, they were attacked by powerful demonic beasts. He really wanted to know what exactly was hidden within this stone mine. Xiaoyu took a few steps forward. Astral light flashed around him as a bow appeared in his hands. Abruptly, he shot out explosively towards the entrance of the stone mine. The sound of the arrow whistling through the air could be heard. The entrance of the stone mine seemed to be so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. Everyone be careful. Xiaoyu faintly spoke. The entire space was exceptionally quiet, but after an instant, everyone suddenly felt the ground trembling. Their hearts involuntarily pounded violently. Boom. The tremors intensified. The countenances of Xiaoyu and the rest turned heavy, and at this moment, whistling sounds drifted over from afar. A group of silhouettes were madly sprinting over, and their eyes flickered when they saw Xiaoyu and the rest. Brother Xie, you wish to enter? The person in the lead exuded an evil aura, giving off a sinister feeling. Do the experts from the Blood Cloud sect want to enter with us? Xiaoyu stared at the experts in the air. When the experts from the Blood Cloud sect saw Su Feng, Ji Shui and Qin Wentian, their eyes flickered as they nodded their heads. Since Brother Xie has discovered something, we shall accept your invitation. Let's go. Xiaoyu ignored the tremors as he walked towards the cave. The others followed behind him as they extended their perception outwards. Boom. That throbbing sensation grew increasingly intense. Qin Wentian only felt his heart pounding unceasingly as his blood surged. Little rascal did its best to burrow into his bosom, as though it could sense that the aura here was extraordinary. I don't sense the aura of demonic beasts. Su Feng had a bewildered expression on his face. At this moment, they had already entered the depths of the cave. The interior of the stone mine was pitch black, and they couldn't see the bottom. There were also many forks in the surroundings, resembling a maze. Brother Xie, why do I feel something is wrong? What is this place? Someone from the Blood Cloud sect asked. I'm not sure. Xiaoyu replied, his words causing the eyes of the other party to freeze as he silently cursed himself for being too careless. He actually didn't hesitate to follow them in. Time seemed to pass by extremely slowly. An hour felt like an eternity to them. Yet they didn't encounter anything at all. Only their hearts were pounding unceasingly. Something's wrong. At this moment, Qin Wentian halted his steps. His brows were furrowed as he faintly sensed an intense sense of danger. His perception had always been extremely sharp, yet he couldn't sense anything at all. Where did this sense of danger originate from? Boom. Another intense throbbing sound rang out, causing Qin Wentian's sense of unease to grow even more intense. Yeah. Little rascal let out an intense screech. Its body abruptly expanded as it transformed into a golden-colored demon king. exuding a terrifying aura. Occasionally, the baleful aura of the purgatory vermilion bird could be seen flickering in its eyes. Roar! Little Rascal lunged forward, actually lunging in the direction of Xiaoyu. Beside Xiaoyu, a figure abruptly turned around. In that instant, Qin Wentian saw a terrifying red glow flickering in the eyes of that person. It was as though that person had lost all rationality, and a low, beast-like roar rang out from his mouth. Not only him, there were two other people beside him as well. Their eyes gleamed with a red light as they exuded the aura of a wild beast. That person lifted his arm and punched out towards Little Rascal. Instantly, the fist light shattered the void. Little Rascal howled in rage and swallowed the attack with a single gulp, as though it wanted to devour the innate technique. At the same time, Qin Wentian abruptly turned around. He saw a terrifying silhouette appearing in front of him. This silhouette was completely crimson in color, even its eyes were crimson. When it stepped out, it caused the blood in the hearts of those who saw it to palpitate wildly. The demonic qi from Qin Wentian actually gushed forth uncontrollably as the demonic energy in his body started to churn violently. Even his bloodline was in chaos. What demonic beast is this? It can actually trigger the demonic qi in my body, and even wants to demonize my bloodline. Could it be that the people of the ecliptic sect were unknowingly controlled by it? Qin Wentian's heart pounded rapidly. What kind of terrifying demonic beast was this? At the entrance of the two caves, another two demonic beasts appeared. However, if one were to look closely, they would discover that these demonic beasts actually had the appearance of humans. It's precisely this type of demonic beast. Ji Shui stared at the demonic beast as her countenance grew incredibly unsightly. She was injured by this type of demonic beast. Demonization. This demonic beast isn't a demonic beast, but a demonic spirit formed from the purest will of the demonic beasts. It can even demonize others. Su Feng seemed to have thought of something as his countenance grew heavy. This incomparably gigantic ancient mountain, what was it exactly? The great earth fruit tree was born after absorbing the essence of the will of the earth. And now, such a monster had appeared in this place. Chapter 488. Qin Wentian's countenance turned heavy. In the depths of the ancient pathway of darkness, more and more demonified monsters appeared. Their eyes all gleamed with red light as the bloodlines in their bodies trembled uncontrollably. It was as though they were gradually being demonified as a tyrannical aura radiated from them. Qin Wentian's fiend transformation art involuntarily erupted forth. His mandate of demons gushed forth as a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth from him. Those from the Blood Cloud sect and Ecliptic sect all distanced themselves from him. Su Feng pulled Ji Shui along as they retreated, yet Ji Shui stared at Qin Wentian as she asked, "Brother Qin?" "Nothing, I've cultivated the mandate of demons." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. "We have to leave this place." Everyone nodded their heads. At this moment, they knew that they had been ambushed. That demonic spirit had already gained sentience, and was extremely intelligent. "Go!" Qin Wentian roared. At this moment, those demonic beasts howled as they lunged towards them. This place was too narrow, it was difficult for them to unleash their full potential. Xiaoyu of the Ecliptic sect erupted forth with his astral nova. 9 arms actually appeared on his body as he brandished a gigantic flaming bow, shooting out arrows that instantly killed the demonic beasts beside him who hadn't fully demonized yet. Tossing the bow away, he dashed towards the entrance of the cavern as his 9 arms punched out with an earth-shattering might. Ji Shui also moved. Her immortal binding chains shot out in all 8 directions, binding all the demonic beasts that appeared in the cavern. Su Feng was in front of her, rushing towards the entrance of the cavern. His long spear was like a beam of light, unstoppable. That demonic beast howled, wanting to evade the spear. Yet Su Feng's palms trembled as his long spear actually split apart, transforming into 3 short spears that blocked the path of the demonic beast, piercing into its body and causing it to be flung through the air. However, that demonic beast didn't die. It crawled back up and blocked the path of retreat. These demonic beasts are unkillable. They don't fear pain at all. The voice of Lung Tu from the Blood Cloud sect trembled. And at this moment, the demonic beast that hadn't moved since the beginning finally moved. Every step it took caused the hearts of the crowd to pound even more violently. A tyrannical aura gushed forth frenziedly, as though it was on the verge of losing control. It's over. Everyone had looks of despair on their faces. Although they couldn't kill those demonic beasts in a short period of time, they could still contend against them. However, this demonic beast king made them feel powerless. The blood-red eyes swept across the crowd, causing them to almost descend into madness. Their veins popped out and their blood vessels bulged. A suffocating pressure of death enveloped everyone. Xiaoyu Lung too, your men will hold back those demonized monsters. We'll deal with this demon spirit. Otherwise, we'll all die here. Su Feng swept a glance at the situation inside. Xiaoyu and Lung Tu nodded slightly. This was the only thing they could do now. Xiaoyu Lung Tu, Su Feng, Ji Shui, as well as Qin Wentian, were facing the powerful demon spirit. Beside Qin Wentian, Little Rascal exuded the aura of a king as it stared at the demonic spirit before shifting its gaze onto Qin Wentian. Its eyes flickered with the light of the purgatory vermilion bird as it roared at Qin Wentian. Purgatory, does it need this demonic spirit? Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to Little Rascal. Little Rascal let out a low roar as it nodded its head. The baleful aura in its eyes grew even denser as the light of the purgatory vermilion bird flickered in and out of existence, as though it was filled with anticipation. Qin Wentian stroked the face of the purgatory vermilion bird, as he nodded his head with a heavy expression on his face. This is what I promised you, I'll definitely do it. After speaking, he turned his gaze onto the demonic spirit as a fearsome battle intent gushed forth from him. As the crowd neared the demonic spirit, the tyrannical aura radiating from them was completely stimulated. Ji Shui's bloodline power erupted forth as her long hair fluttered in the wind. Her eyes shone like the stars in the night sky as the immortal binding rope transformed into countless strands that shot out. The demonic spirit let out a low roar as the entire cavern trembled. Everyone felt as though their blood was about to burst out from their bodies. Busy. Su Feng released his astral nova as his silhouette flickered with the speed of lightning. The astral nova in his hands shone with a resplendent silver light as it transformed into a 9-meter-long spear. With a thrust of his spear, a vortex of astral light appeared as he pierced towards the eyes of the demonic spirit. The demonic spirit inclined its head slightly, using its face to defend while its body struggled madly. The immortal binding rope felt as though it was on the verge of exploding. That long spear spun rapidly in the air, yet there was no sign of blood. Each of Xiaoyu's 9 arms was holding onto a resplendent golden arrow. His body followed the arrow, and 9 palm imprints slammed down at the same time. Heaven and earth seemed to be on the verge of collapse, slamming onto the head of the demonic beast. A spiked blood-colored glove appeared in the hands of Lung Tu from the Blood Cloud sect. He pressed it against the forehead of the demonic spirit as boundless blood energy gushed into the body of the demonic spirit. Roar! The demonic spirit inclined its head as it howled in rage. A demonic blood-colored light enveloped the entire space, enveloping everyone as the blood in their veins throbbed madly. This demonic spirit didn't attack, it only wanted to turn the humans into demons instead. Qin Wentian walked out step by step. Every step he took contained a terrifying demonic will. At this moment, a terrifying will of the monarch of demons gushed forth from his body, as though the blood in his body was being stimulated by the demonic spirit. Little Rascal was the same as Qin Wentian. It was as though they were about to be completely awakened by the demonic spirit. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he instantly descended. His killing intent towered up into the sky as the gigantic black sword in his hands instantly slammed into the head of the demonic spirit. Waves of terrifying energy gushed into the demonic spirit. Yet the eyes of the demonic spirit were still as red as ever, as cold as ever. It was as though the attacks of everyone here were useless against it. Little Rascal leapt onto the body of the demonic spirit and bit down on the neck of the demonic spirit, frenziedly devouring the energy within the demonic spirit. Roar! At this instant, the demonic spirit was completely enraged. Ji Shui's immortal binding rope couldn't endure it any longer, and she hurriedly retracted it. If she persisted any longer, her astral nova would shatter. Boom! The demonic spirit stomped on the ground, as a baleful demonic chi swept over everything. The eyes of Lung Tu and the others started to gleam with a demonic light, as though the blood in their bodies was gradually losing control as they were flung through the air. Qin Wentian and the demonic spirit stared at each other. He felt a towering demonic qi gushing into his body, wanting to control him. However, at this moment, the blood in Qin Wentian's body started to churn frenziedly, faintly condensing into the form of a terrifying primordial demonic spirit that loomed over the world, staring disdainfully at the invading energy. Bang! A terrifying gaze swept over. The body of the demonic spirit trembled violently, as though it was on the verge of collapse. Pooh! Qin Wentian was the first to be unable to endure the terrifying energy in his body. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body was flung through the air, the blood in his body trembling violently. The demonic spirit seemed to have been stimulated. It abruptly leaped into the air, landing heavily on the ground as a thunderous boom echoed out. Little Rascal, who was on its back, was still biting down on the demonic spirit with all its might. Roar, roar, roar! 3 consecutive howls of rage rang out. The demonic spirit was completely enraged. The demonic spirits under its control began to slaughter even more frenziedly, and 3 experts from the other side had already died. However, Su Feng, Xie Yu and the rest were in even more despair. They discovered that all their efforts were futile. In front of this demonic spirit, they couldn't even withstand a single strike. As that immense pressure bore down on them, Ji Shui paled. She murmured in a low voice, "Am I going to die here? Even if I die, I cannot become a monster. I'm unwilling." Lung Tu coldly spat out, filled with an intense reluctance. How could he die here? Su Feng and Xie Yu's countenances were extremely unsightly to behold. They had no way to contend against this demonic spirit. However, Qin Wentian could sense that at this moment, the demonic spirit had locked onto him. Although this demonic spirit had sentience, it still retained the instincts of a demonic spirit. It could sense a terrifying demonic energy emanating from Qin Wentian, and it wanted to subdue it. Qin Wentian glanced at Su Feng and the rest as he spoke. "Since we are allies, I will lure this demonic spirit away. There are 2 paths leading to this demonic spirit. I will take one path while you guys take the other path. Maybe you might be able to find the treasure it is guarding. If you guys manage to find it, I want to share. How about it?" The countenances of Xie Yu and the rest froze as they stared at Qin Wentian. This person was truly audacious, to think of treasures at this moment. "Fine, if you can lure this demonic spirit away, we will definitely share a share with you," Xie Yu immediately expressed. "No problem." Su Feng and Lung Tu nodded. Qin Wentian stared at the demonic spirit as he dashed out. Stellar transposition instantly appeared behind the demonic spirit as he sprinted towards one of the paths leading to the demonic spirit. As expected, the demonic spirit instantly turned, disregarding everything else as it chased after Qin Wentian. This caused Xie Yu and the rest to exchange glances, feeling as though they had just found a new lease of life in a hopeless situation. This fellow. Ji Shui stared at the back view of the demonic spirit. Xie Yu turned and stared at the battlefield as he spoke. "We need to deal with these demonic spirits first before sending someone to inform the experts of our sect." Lung Tu nodded in agreement. The situation here had already exceeded their expectations. Qin Wentian madly sprinted forward, but the speed of the demonic spirit was even faster. Luckily, he could execute stellar transposition and widen the distance between them. Little Rascal was still latched onto the demonic spirit's back, devouring its flesh and blood. Its ferocious nature seemed to have been completely stimulated. Finally, Qin Wentian arrived at the end of this space. This place was actually a cave with a blood pool. The demonic blood in the pool was boiling, and the demonic qi contained within caused Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. This demonic spirit was birthed from this place. Qin Wentian turned, only to see the demonic spirit howling in rage. A sharp blade appeared on its back, piercing into Little Rascal's body, causing Little Rascal to howl in pain as it lunged towards Qin Wentian. At this moment, the demonic spirit was truly enraged. A pair of wings appeared on its back, and incomparably sharp fangs appeared in its mouth. Its eyes flickered with a blood-red light as it stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. With every step it took, Qin Wentian almost coughed out blood. There was simply no way for him to block. BZ. The demonic spirit lunged over. This time around, it was filled with killing intent. Its sharp claws directly tore through everything. The scarlet demon halberd appeared in Qin Wentian's hands as he abruptly slashed out. A dreamlike scene appeared in this space. Yet the demonic spirit didn't seem to be affected at all. It was a demonic spirit. How could it be affected by nightmares? Bang! An incomparably powerful force blasted Qin Wentian into the blood pool. At the same time, the demonic spirit grabbed out with its palms, directly pinning Little Rascal to the ground. Its eyes flickered with a terrifying killing intent as it stared at Little Rascal. Too powerful, so powerful that it was impossible to defend against it. The demonic beast bloodline in Qin Wentian's body seethed. He who had fallen into the blood pool actually began to frenziedly devour the energy within. That energy was boundless and boundless. It was the purest form of demonic energy. Release it! Qin Wentian roared. He slowly walked about in the blood pool as a demonic glow revolved around him. He stared at the demonic spirit. If he wanted to defeat it, he could only use the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation, or the immortal vanquishing swordplay. If he wanted to use the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation, he would still need to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. If not, he would only be able to roam the heavens and earth as a demon. This wasn't something he wanted. But if he directly used the immortal vanquishing swordplay, he wouldn't have enough energy left in his body to ignite. He would die. Blood pool. At this moment, Qin Wentian felt the thirst of the demonic beast bloodline in his body. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying light as abruptly, a fearsome sword might gushed forth from him. It was as though his entire body was burning, but at the instant of that, the blood in his body frenziedly devoured the energy within the blood pool. Back then, he borrowed the power of the demonic beast's divinity to ignite his own essence, chi and spirit to activate the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Now the energy within the blood pool seemed to be able to replace it. Chapter 489. The demonic beast stared at Qin Wentian as it howled in rage. Its sharp claws slammed into Little Rascal's body, causing blood to flow from Little Rascal's body. Release me. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he instantly appeared in front of the demonic beast, slashing out with his sword. Bang! The sharp sword slashed onto the demonic beast's body, yet it couldn't move it at all. It stared at Qin Wentian and abruptly lunged forward, wanting to devour everything in its path. Qin Wentian's left arm swung out as an incomparably gigantic heavenly hammer blasted out, directly slamming into the mouth of the demonic beast, sealing its mouth shut. Qin Wentian's body sank into the blood pool once more. The thirst within him grew stronger and stronger as a fearsome demonic light flickered in his eyes. It was unknown how terrifying the demonic energy contained within the blood pool was. It even surpassed the demonic energy he borrowed from the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art back then. Although his body was thirsty, it was impossible for him to devour the blood pool. He could only activate the immortal vanquishing swordplay and devour the demonic energy within his body. I'll risk it all. The sword intent radiating from Qin Wentian grew increasingly terrifying. The entire space was filled with destructive sword might as the blood pool transformed into a fearsome vortex, frenziedly absorbing the demonic energy into Qin Wentian's body. His body was burning with a frenzied intensity. I can endure it. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't court death. If this method wasn't possible, he would rather be heavily injured and stop using it. But at this moment he could clearly sense that the demonic energy within the blood pool was sufficient to support him. Little Rascal turned its gaze over to Qin Wentian. The countenance of the vermilion bird flashed as it stared at Qin Wentian. Its gaze was filled with emotions and a sense of attachment. Back then, it was merely a purgatory ancient luck that was born because of Qin Wentian. In its world, there was only Qin Wentian. Roar! The scarlet-eyed demonic beast felt threatened. It roared madly and rushed out once again. Astral light erupted forth, stellar transposition. Qin Wentian retreated once more. Yet he was still within the pool of blood. The entire pool transformed into beams of blood-colored light that were absorbed into his body. The entire space seemed to be filled with a blood-colored sword might. Qin Wentian's body was trembling slightly. He was ready to bear the pain that the sword would bring. When the crimson-eyed demonic beast lunged forward again, Qin Wentian's finger pressed downwards. Instantly, the body of the crimson-eyed demonic beast froze in place. The boundless blood-colored sword might bore down on it, as though the entire space was about to be torn apart. The scarlet-eyed demonic beast trembled violently as it raised its head to the sky and roared. The blood pool spun madly as it rapidly dried up. The essence of the blood pool was all burned into the sword. Qin Wentian's finger descended once more, tapping the body of the scarlet-eyed demonic beast. A sword might capable of destroying everything ravaged the demonic beast's body. Extinguish. Qin Wentian's body was completely covered in blood-colored light. That sword strike had completely landed. With a roar of despair, the scarlet-eyed demonic beast lay on the ground. At this moment, the blood pool had already dried up. There was nothing left. Over there, a skeleton could be seen. The light radiating from the skeleton gradually dimmed. Pooh. Qin Wentian sat on the ground as he panted heavily. He took out the blood shadow Ganoderma with great difficulty, and swallowed both of them. However, a smile could be seen on his face. He had succeeded. This blood pool had supported the sword strike, but after that his body felt exceptionally weak. His internal organs were all convulsing violently. However, the terrifying ancient demon bloodline in his body had not been extinguished. It flowed through his body, as if the remaining power of the blood pool demon had been completely absorbed. Wherever the bloodline flowed through, he felt his body recovering rapidly. Rumble, the earth trembled, as though the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness. Little Rascal came to his side and gently stroked his face. Qin Wentian then spoke to Little Rascal. Quickly devour that demonic spirit. With a low roar, Little Rascal turned and dashed towards the demonic spirit that Qin Wentian had intentionally not torn apart. At the same time, the entire space around them actually began to collapse. Outside of the mine, the heavens and earth were similarly collapsing. Many experts in the surroundings inclined their heads and stared at this space, only to see that the entire space was collapsing. What's going on? In the camp of the king's manor, Shang-Chi stared at the sky. Earlier, it was as though a beam of blood-colored light had sliced through this space, causing the entire space to collapse. Sure too, could it be that the space within this mountain was really just a mountain? And now the mountain is collapsing? The gazes of everyone were filled with shock as they stared at this space. Even the guards outside the mountain were shocked when they saw the mountain collapsing. They discovered that when the mountain was collapsing, it seemed to be collapsing layer by layer, incomparably orderly. Not long after, the entire space had completely collapsed and shattered. The mountain was no longer a mountain, and the water was no longer a river. The vast space could be seen with a single glance. It was really only the width of a mountain. The experts from the various camps could already see each other's existences. What's that? At this moment, the gazes of everyone turned in a certain direction only to see that there was a gigantic ancient tree as tall as a mountain. Its roots were intertwined with each other, as it towered up into the sky. Xiaoyu of the Ecliptic sect and Lung Tu of the Blood Cloud sect are over there. At this moment, the silhouettes of the experts flickered, transforming into bolts of lightning as they sped towards the gigantic tree. An instant later, the experts of the various powers all gathered here. Inclining their heads, they stared at the gigantic ancient tree as their hearts pounded violently. The ancient tree exuded a terrifying mandate energy, and on its branches, there were many fruits that shone faintly with the power of constellations. Oh my God, that's a celestial constellation tree. Someone exclaimed in shock. They actually discovered an ancient celestial constellation tree here. Celestial constellation tree. The bodies of many trembled as expressions of madness flashed in their eyes. An ancient celestial constellation tree actually appeared here? Return to the king's manor immediately. Only to see Shang-Chi turning his gaze onto a person behind him. That person's countenance turned ashen, as though he was filled with reluctance. But when he saw the coldness in Shang-Chi's eyes, he still nodded his head and started to retreat. They naturally understood what the appearance of an ancient celestial constellation tree signified. An ancient celestial constellation tree can produce celestial constellation fruits. If there are any celestial constellation fruits I need here, it would be sufficient for me to comprehend my mandate faster and step into the perfection boundary of the second level. In the direction of the Yin clan, Yin Ting inclined his head as a crazed light flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that there would actually be a celestial constellation tree here. Not only that, it was an extremely mature celestial constellation tree, with so many celestial constellation fruits on it. Any single celestial constellation fruit was priceless, especially to those who wanted to break through to the mandate boundary. Only to see at this moment, Jian Jingtian from the heaven-shocking sword sect started to sweep the area with his sword intent, frenziedly slashing apart the rocks on the ground, as though he was searching for something. This scene caused the eyes of the others to flash with sharpness. They all knew the origin of the celestial constellation tree from the ancient records, and when they thought of this dimension, their hearts pounded violently. They didn't dare to imagine what it was. This place was actually the burial ground of a legendary character, a character above the celestial phenomenon realm. It was rumored that characters at that level had already condensed an immortal foundation in their bodies, and had the strength of an immortal. They could slay celestial phenomenon ascendants with a single glance, and destroy a group of ascendants with a single punch. No matter how many ascendants there were, they would all die in front of such a legendary character. With just a light pat, it would be like squashing an ant to death. Experts at this level were also the hegemons of this boundless region. The sect leader of the Royal Sacred Sect was precisely such a legendary character. Hence, no one could shake the position of the Royal Sacred Sect in the boundless region they ruled. If one day, such a character also appeared in the Grand Shang Empire, the status of the Grand Shang Empire would surely be incomparable. It would undergo a qualitative change, becoming lofty and lofty, surpassing the limits of the Grand Shang Empire. If one day, there was a country that gave birth to such a legendary character, the status of that country would instantly surpass the Grand Shang Empire, and even surpass it. One could very well imagine the waves of shock in their hearts when they saw the celestial constellation tree, and realized that there was such a supreme existence buried here. Not only Jian Jingtian, the others were also frenziedly sweeping the ground. According to the ancient records, the birth of the celestial constellation tree would definitely be nurtured by the blood of that legendary character. Although the celestial constellation tree was incomparably precious, it was here, it wouldn't be able to run away. They wanted to see if there were any treasures left behind by that legendary character. And at this moment, a hand abruptly stretched out from the rubble. The instant this hand appeared, everyone halted their movements as their hearts pounded violently. Bang! An explosive sound rang out as the ground split apart. After which, a silhouette appeared, and when the eyes of everyone clearly saw this silhouette, a look of bewilderment flashed in their eyes. Their mouths twitched involuntarily. The nervousness in their hearts earlier seemed to have been played by someone. "It's you." Shang Yu had a strange expression on her face when she saw Qin Wentian. "You actually didn't die." Yin Cheng's countenance turned sinister. Qin Wentian was actually still alive, and had even managed to crawl out from the rubble. Not only him, beside him, a demonic beast also appeared and stood beside Qin Wentian, staring at the crowd. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He didn't expect that he would recover so quickly after using the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Maybe it had something to do with the blood pool he swallowed. At this moment, he inclined his head in bewilderment, only to see the ancient tree above him. A strange light involuntarily flashed in his eyes. Could it be that this ancient tree was nourished by the energy of the astral crystal mine? What caused it to grow so strong? Not only that, the aura of the fruits on this ancient tree was even more terrifying compared to the great earth fruit. What made Qin Wentian even more depressed was that this entire space seemed to have collapsed. Everyone was gathered here, and at this moment, numerous gazes landed on him, many of them with unfriendly expressions. "Brother Qin." Ji Shue's melodious voice drifted over. In such a tense atmosphere, it sounded somewhat different. Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head to Ji Shue as he asked, What tree is this? The celestial constellation tree. Born from the bloodline of a celestial phenomenon ascendant. This isn't an astral crystal mine either. It's most likely that the mountain of Yuan meteor stones was sucked dry by the celestial constellation tree. And that crimson-eyed blood demon was also born from the blood of that celestial phenomenon ascendant. Ji Shui explained to Qin Wentian. The celestial constellation fruit of this celestial constellation tree is also known as the martial will fruit. Born from the bloodline of a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Qin Wentian's heart pounded. That pool of blood. He suddenly understood why the pool of blood could withstand his immortal vanquishing swordplay, and why it could recover so quickly. Just when Qin Wentian was still in shock, Xiaoyu turned his gaze onto him as he laughed. Brother Qin, the blood demon that chased after you was born from the bloodline of a legendary ascendant. Now that it has disappeared, it must have been chased by you, right? Since you chased into its lair, did you discover any treasures left behind by that supreme ascendant? As the sound of Xiaoyu's voice faded, Ji Shui's beautiful eyes froze as her countenance turned extremely unsightly. This Xiaoyu actually changed his attitude so quickly. The gazes of everyone were focused on Qin Wentian at the same instant, as waves of terrifying cold intent gushed forth. Qin Wentian glanced at Xiaoyu, only to see that Xiaoyu's countenance was as calm as ever, with a faint smile on his face. It was as though he had already forgotten how his life was saved. Chapter 490. Qin Wentian thought back to the skeleton in his bloodline. However, other than that skeleton, there was nothing else in the surroundings. For such a legendary character to die here, he must have experienced a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering battle. For the defeated, how could the treasures on his body be preserved? Not all experts would leave behind an inheritance before they died. Maybe there were only skeletons left behind. As for the birth of the celestial constellation tree, it was purely because the bloodline of that expert was too powerful. After countless years, the celestial constellation fruits were born. Xiaoyu naturally knew how tyrannical the demonic beast was. He should already be surprised that Qin Wentian could survive. But now that he said such a sentence, it undoubtedly caused the gazes of the crowd to shift to Qin Wentian. This way, the number of gazes on the celestial constellation tree would lessen. Brother Qin was pursued by that demonic beast. How could he have obtained anything in such a short period of time? Xiaoyu, aren't your words a little too venomous? Ji Shui stared at Xiaoyu, her countenance filled with rage. Earlier, if it wasn't for Qin Wentian drawing the demonic beast away, it would be hard for them to escape death. Now that Qin Wentian crawled out from the rubble, regardless of how he managed to escape, it was clear that he wasn't in a good state. He must have experienced an intense battle. According to Xiaoyu's promise, Qin Wentian would receive a portion of the treasures they discovered. But now, leaving aside the matter of splitting the treasures, this Xiaoyu actually directly placed Qin Wentian in such a dire situation. I'm just casually asking. In any case, there were only two paths earlier. The path we took just so happened to lead us to this ancient tree. If Brother Qin took the path, it wouldn't be surprising if he had some good fortune. Xiaoyu laughed. Shut up. Su Feng coldly snorted, angrily rebuking Xiaoyu. His long spear gleamed with sharpness as he pointed it at Xiaoyu. I'm ashamed to be associated with you. Brother Su Feng, don't be so impudent just because I'm polite to you. You're merely an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain. It's not difficult for me to obtain this identity. Xiaoyu's eyes flickered with a cold light. His words were the truth. Given Xiaoyu's strength, he too had the chance to become an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountains. It was just that the ecliptic sect Xiaoyu was from was a power within the Xianqing city, and it belonged to the Grand Shang Empire. The relationship between the Grand Shang Empire and the Qinghua Mountain wasn't that friendly. In the Grand Shang Empire, the Qinghua Mountain was clearly stronger. Not only that, other than these two major powers, there were many other powers they could choose from. Hence, many of the geniuses weren't in a hurry to make their choice. There's no need to fight anymore. Once we kill this man, we'll know whether or not he has obtained the inheritance of the utmost powerful being. A cold voice rang out. The person who spoke was none other than Yin Ting from the Yin clan. He already knew that Qin Wentian was the one who had humiliated Yin Cheng before. He had already given the order to kill Qin Wentian, and it was an accident that Qin Wentian didn't die. But now that Qin Wentian appeared here, there was no other choice but to die. Ji Shue's silhouette flickered as she appeared beside Qin Wentian. She stared at the crowd. Brother Qin and I are allies. If someone dares to act against him, I naturally won't stand idly by the side. The long spear in Su Feng's hand spun slightly as he stared in the direction of Yin Ting. This slight movement of his indicated his attitude, causing everyone to be taken aback. I owe my life to him. A cold light flickered in Su Feng's eyes. Regardless of the reason why Qin Wentian lured the crimson-eyed demonic beast away, Qin Wentian had still saved his life. I won't help either side. Lung Tu stated his attitude. Wanting him to help Qin Wentian, he couldn't do it. But wanting him to kick Qin Wentian when he was down, he wasn't so despicable. He heard that Qin Wentian had offended Shangyu, Jin Zhan and Yin Cheng. It would be hard for Qin Wentian to escape death. Yin Ting glanced at Xiaoyu when he heard Lung Tu's words. Xiaoyu's attention didn't seem to be entirely focused on Qin Wentian. This caused Yin Ting to have a rough guess in his heart. Busy. A raging wind gusted as the silence was broken. Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan soared up into the skies, aiming for the constellation fruits in the center of the celestial constellation tree. Humph! Shang-Chi coldly snorted. His silhouette flickered as he transformed into a beam of light, shooting towards the constellation fruits. Upon seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't be bothered with Qin Wentian any longer. They all dashed towards the celestial constellation tree, especially when they saw Xiaoyu and Lung Tu doing the same thing. They were even more certain that Qin Wentian didn't obtain anything. If not, how could these people be so calm as to spare him? Regardless of whether or not there were any treasures, they could temporarily put it aside. Right now, the most important thing was to fight for the constellation fruits. The constellation fruits on the celestial constellation tree were of different colors. The one on the lowest layer was an earthen yellow in color, similar to the great earth fruits. When the crowd neared it, they all halted as a terrifying pressure bore down on them, causing them to have no way to advance any further. Naturally, there were also those who directly moved towards the other layers of constellation fruits. However, they all met with different kinds of obstructions. For example, when they neared the blood-colored constellation fruits, they instantly felt their blood flowing uncontrollably, as though their bodies were about to explode. In fact, if they advanced any further, their bodies would bleed profusely. It was an extremely miserable sight. The celestial constellation tree was birthed from the bloodline of a legendary expert. The constellation fruits it bore contained a terrifying will of mandates. How could it be so easy to obtain them? This was also the reason why they didn't act earlier. If they could pluck the constellation fruits in an instant, these people wouldn't even need to face off against each other. They would have directly acted. Let's go. Su Feng glanced at Ji Shue. Wielding his long spear, he directly flew towards the celestial constellation tree. Ji Shue glanced at Qin Wentian. Brother Qin, it's best if you leave first. Don't participate in the contest for the constellation fruits. After speaking, she also soared up into the air. From her point of view, if Qin Wentian continued to stay here, it would be extremely dangerous. He might even be killed. The experts from the 9 transcendent powers all acted at the same time. For a period of time, the entire celestial constellation tree was filled with silhouettes. Qin Wentian's perception gushed out, sensing the will of mandates contained within the constellation fruits. The earthen yellow constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of Great Earth. The blood-red constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of blood. Other than that, there were also constellation fruits that contained demonic energy, spatial energy, and metal energy. The constellation fruits on the highest level were all crimson in color. When he released his perception, Qin Wentian's heart pounded wildly, just like when he faced the crimson-eyed demonic beast. The crimson-eyed demonic beast was born from the power of its bloodline. Hence, its body contained many extraordinary powers. It was just that it couldn't unleash them. The celestial constellation tree was like a mountain spiraling in the air. It was separated into 6 levels, and each level bore different fruits. However, the fruits on each level weren't so easy to pluck. At this moment, the expert who wanted to pluck the constellation fruits on the highest level actually fell headfirst from the tree. Evidently, he had already died. This caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Even plucking the fruits could result in death. Qin Wentian rubbed Little Rascal's head as he spoke in a low voice. "Help me pluck those fruits with the will of mandate of demons." Little Rascal's silhouette flickered as it soared through the air, directly dashing towards the constellation fruits containing the will of demons. The blood in Qin Wentian's body seethed as a fearsome demonic qi gushed forth from him. His entire body was enveloped by a fearsome blood qi as the aura he exuded surged up at an insane rate. Inclining his head, Qin Wentian stared at the celestial constellation tree as his blood qi churned wildly, breaking through the limits of his cultivation base. Qin Wentian's silhouette soared up into the air, directly landing on a tree branch on the first level as he walked towards one of the fruits. Yin Ting, Xieyu, Jin Yan, the three heavens chosen were all on this level. Other than them, there were also several powerful heavenly dipper sovereigns present. Qin Wentian walked up. Scram! Yin Ting blasted out with his palms, as a gigantic palm imprint of lightning imbued with a heavy pressure akin to a gigantic piece of land sweeping downwards, suppressing Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palms as demonic qi churned wildly. His divine energy howled as he punched out, directly shattering the thunderous palm imprint. Stepping out, Qin Wentian used his tyrannical strength to forcibly endure the pressure from the constellation fruits. He was one step closer to the constellation fruits, and he only needed 5 more steps before he could obtain them. However, Yin Ting, Xieyu and Jin Yan were only 4 steps away, even closer than him. Beside Qin Wentian, there were a few other experts who were only 5 steps away. When they saw Qin Wentian walking over, their eyes all flickered with a cold light. "Since you helped me once, Scram." Xieyu's gaze swept over as he stared at Qin Wentian. 9 arms manifested from his body, resembling a monster. Jin Yan was a heavens chosen from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan. Before this, because Jin Zhan was defeated by Qin Wentian, he wanted to teach Qin Wentian a lesson. Yet now, Qin Wentian actually dared to come here to vie for the constellation fruits? His finger flickered with terrifying golden flames as he released his astral nova, causing the golden flames to transform into streams of light that flowed towards the tip of his finger. Jin Yan's finger pressed down in the direction of Qin Wentian as the golden flames shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as a gigantic palm imprint slammed towards the golden flames. However, he discovered that the golden flames seemed to have transformed into illusory flames. The palm imprint directly penetrated through them as though they didn't exist, continuing to pierce towards Qin Wentian. Poochie! The golden flames directly entered Qin Wentian's fist as a surge of destructive energy abruptly ravaged Qin Wentian's arm, incinerating everything within it. Boom! Waves of terrifying energy gushed into his arm, extinguishing the flames. These flames could transform into illusory objects that didn't exist. Their attacks were formless and formless. If one wasn't careful, they would be struck by it. However, the destructive power of the flames was comparatively weaker, and was easily erased by the energy within Qin Wentian's body. Despite that, his arm was still charred. Stepping forth, Qin Wentian felt the terrifying pressure bearing down on him. He was only 4 steps away from the earthen yellow constellation fruits. "You don't know the immensity of death." Yin Ting coldly snorted. An even greater surge of energy gushed forth from his body as bolts of lightning blasted downwards, illuminating his entire body. He was like a god of thunder staring disdainfully at Qin Wentian, exuding an unparalleled sense of imposingness. Xieyu's countenance was ice-cold as well. His 9 arms emitted roaring sounds at the same time, targeting Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see it. His gaze was focused on the area in front of him as he coldly stated, "With me, Qin Wentian, there's no share of the constellation fruits here." After speaking, he disregarded everything, disregarding the threat of his opponent's attacks, disregarding everything, taking another step forward. Chapter 491. The constellation fruits that contain the mandate of Great Earth emanated a terrifying pressure, crushing down on every part of one's body. A formless barrier formed in the air, making it extremely difficult to approach. Qin Wentian was proficient in the mandate of force. His mandate of force was similar to the mandate of Great Earth, and right now, his bloodline power surged as his mandate of demons erupted forth. Hence, he was only 3 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. However, the 3 experts around him were none other than the heaven chosen of the 3 transcendent powers. Jin Yan, an outstanding character from the Jin Yan aristocrat clan. Yin Ting, a heaven chosen of the Yin clan. Xie Yu, a heaven chosen of the ecliptic sect. With these 3 present, how could they allow Qin Wentian to obtain the constellation fruits? Especially when Qin Wentian was so arrogant. With me here, the constellation fruits won't belong to any of you. Even Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were in the air seizing the mandate of metal, lowered their heads and glanced at Qin Wentian below. Traces of worry could be seen in their eyes. Ji Shui initially wanted to tell Qin Wentian to leave, so that he wouldn't be hunted down by them after he obtained the constellation fruits. However, not only did Qin Wentian refuse to leave, he even personally participated in the contest for the constellation fruits. With so many heaven-chosen present, how could he interfere? However, each level of the constellation fruits had a different level of pressure. Su Feng and Ji Shui were facing the pressure from the mandate of metal, and had no time to worry about Qin Wentian. They could only pray for him. This fellow is too impulsive. He has underestimated the demon-level geniuses of Xianqing City. Ji Shui silently mused, breaking out in cold sweat for Qin Wentian. When the 3 heaven-chosen saw that Qin Wentian was a step ahead, their eyes gleamed with a terrifying coldness. However, this step of Qin Wentian's wasn't for nothing. As his foot landed, a formless sword intent manifested in the air. However, how could this be sufficient to cause the 3 of them to waver? Above Yin Ting's head, a terrifying lightning python appeared, exuding demonic qi. This was none other than his astral nova. With a flick of his finger, numerous illusory lightning pythons lunged towards Qin Wentian. Each and every strand of lightning contained a terrifying destructive might. At the same time he blasted out this attack, he took another step forward. Similarly, there were only 3 more steps remaining. Qin Wentian didn't care about his opponent's attack. His arms transformed into the scales of a demonic dragon as he blasted out 9 palm imprints, intertwining with the lightning pythons. At the same time, Xie Yu's attack arrived. His 9 arms blasted out a series of fist shadows. Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms, causing the space around him to tremble and shatter. However, the fist shadows filled the sky, burying his opponent within. His will of mandates caused the power of the fist shadows to stack together, growing stronger and stronger, transforming into a gigantic fist wave, capable of destroying everything. Qin Wentian didn't retreat. The divine energy in his body erupted forth as he blasted out 9 palm imprints. Only then did the fist light dissipate. But at this moment, Jin Yan's attack arrived. A lotus of golden flames gushed over. This time around, it was no longer illusory but corporeal, containing a fearsome fiery might within. Qin Wentian pointed out. Sword chi gushed forth, yet the lotus didn't explode. When it neared Qin Wentian, a thunderous boom rang out, wanting to destroy everything. Qin Wentian retreated a step as he fell downwards. The terrifying flames wreaked havoc in his surroundings, but Qin Wentian's sword might surged forth, allowing him to withstand it. And at this moment, Xie Yu and Jin Yan borrowed the force of the tremors from the impact to step out as well. The 3 of them advanced while Qin Wentian retreated. All 3 of them were a step ahead of Qin Wentian. Ignorant fool. Jin Yan coldly spoke. His eyes flickered with golden flames as he stared at Qin Wentian. After this matter is over, I will kill you. After speaking, the 3 of them frenziedly unleashed their own strength. Exchanging glances, they circulated the energy in their bodies and madly took a step upwards. A thunderous boom rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. All 3 of them unleashed their strongest auras, resisting the pressure. Right now, they were only 2 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. The 3 of them exchanged glances, and from the eyes of each other, they could see an intense battle intent flickering within. There were only 2 more steps left. Whoever took the first step would be able to pluck the 2 constellation fruits containing the mandate of Great Earth. As for Qin Wentian, he was no longer in their considerations. Qin Wentian stared at the 3 of them. In that instant he didn't advance but retreated instead. His body landed on the ground, but the sharpness in his eyes grew even more intense. Vast amounts of demonic qi erupted forth. His body was clad in a demonic armor, and with a stomp of his foot, a terrifying might shook the earth as he soared up into the skies once again. Stepping out, his sword intent whistled through the air. Stepping out 2 steps, his sword qi engulfed the area. Stepping out 3 steps, Qin Wentian's entire body was shrouded by a terrifying sword halo. Ta! Yin Ting, who was in the air, roared. His entire body was enveloped by the terrifying might of lightning, breaking apart everything. He took another step forward, and was now only a step away from the constellation fruits. Jin Yan's body was enveloped by the golden lotus light. The screen of light pierced through the air as he took another step forward. Xieyu's 9 arms blasted out in all directions. Borrowing the power of the tremors, he similarly took another step forward. Their eyes were all fixed on the constellation fruits ahead. They were only a single step away. They all noticed that other than the pressure, the humming of swords could be heard echoing throughout the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian took his 4th step as his sword-type astral nova floated above his head. Numerous illusory sword shadows could be seen revolving around him as the swords swayed in the wind. As the 5th step landed, the entire space was enveloped by the dual might of sword qi and earth pressure. The gazes of the 3 in front froze. Yin Ting turned his head to glance at Qin Wentian, only to see that Qin Wentian was already 1 step behind him. Qin Wentian actually dared to return? How powerful was that sword qi? This constellation fruit is mine. Yin Ting took the final step forward. How can I allow you to enjoy it alone? Jin Yan similarly stepped out. Roar! Xiaoyu howled in madness, not fearing the pressure as he took another step forward. The 3 of them stepped forward and stretched their hands out, aiming for the same constellation fruit. This constellation fruit was located at the front. It would be easier for them to pluck it. But at this very moment, that lingering sword might suddenly bore down on them. Qin Wentian's 6th step landed, and the true killing might of the 7 annihilations swordplay directly penetrated into their bodies. Their countenances drastically changed, as though millions upon millions of sword intents were piercing through their bodies. Puchi, the branch of the constellation fruit, was directly severed. That terrifying pressure was broken apart by the sword qi as it slashed downwards. 2 constellation fruits fell together with the branch. The countenances of the 3 drastically changed as they stretched their hands out to pluck the fruits. However, they only saw boundless sword light slashing through the branches of the constellation fruits, destroying everything in its path. You dare? Yin Ting roared as he retracted his palms. His body pressed downwards as the power of thunder and earth frenziedly converged into a terrifying bolt of lightning that lunged towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stretched his hands out and grabbed hold of the constellation fruit. He felt an incomparably heavy sensation, but with an intention of his will, he directly kept it. Pointing his finger upwards, a towering sword might swept over everything, blocking the incoming attack. His body directly fell downwards, instantly returning to the ground. Impudent. The 3 of them in the air all radiated a terrifying killing intent as they instantly appeared in the airspace above Qin Wentian, surrounding him. You are courting death. Yin Ting stomped downwards, his rage towering up into the skies. The earth beneath his feet directly cracked apart under the might of the lightning. Qin Wentian stared up in the air, only to see that many of the constellation fruits on the gigantic constellation tree had already been plucked. The golden-colored constellation fruits contained a powerful mandate of metal. One was seized by Jian Jingtian from the heaven-shocking sword sect, while the other was seized by Su Feng. As for the constellation fruits containing the mandate of demonic beasts, Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan seized one, while the other was snatched away by Little Rascal. As for the blood-colored constellation fruits containing the mandate of blood, all of them were seized by Shang-Chi. on the gigantic constellation tree. Only the 4 constellation fruits on the top 2 layers remained unharvested. But at this moment, the various experts were already rushing over there. Only Yinting and the others didn't do so. They wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Their killing intents frenziedly gushed forth. Qin Wentian dared to seize their constellation fruits. He had to die for sure. There was no chance of survival at all. Right now, they didn't even have a single constellation fruit in their hands. Busy. At this moment, the immortal binding rope appeared in the air, shooting towards Yinting and the other 2. Yinting and the others stiffened as they evaded. The immortal binding rope rapidly extended outwards as Ji Shui stood in the air. Su Feng's silhouette flickered as he appeared with a resplendent long spear in his hands. The 3 of you are geniuses from the various major powers. Yet you actually joined forces to deal with a single person? What a joke. Ji Shui stared at the 3 of them as she mocked. She didn't expect that Qin Wentian would actually be able to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, snatching the constellation fruits away. Do the 2 of you want to interfere in this matter? Yinting coldly asked. In the air, a group of experts descended, sealing this entire space. These were none other than the experts from the Yin clan and Goldenfire aristocrat clan. The so-called geniuses are merely SOSO. The 3 of us actually couldn't even obtain a single constellation fruit. The long spear in Su Feng's hands spun as a terrifying sharpness gushed forth from it. Su Feng, if you want to interfere in this matter, even if you are an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, I will still kill you all. Yinting coldly spoke. If you guys don't want the other constellation fruits, I will go get them for you. Qin Wentian's countenance was calm. Although these geniuses were strong, and their mandates had all reached the transformation boundary of the 2nd level, given his methods, he wouldn't fear them at all. However, right now, he didn't have the time to waste on them. The constellation fruits were extremely important to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns like Wuxia. It could increase the speed of one's comprehension of their mandates, and could even aid in comprehending the true intent of their mandates. As for the remaining 4 constellation fruits, he wanted them all. Su Feng Ji Shui snatched the constellation fruits. Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. After which, he stepped out and executed stellar transposition, vanishing from his original location. Yinting and the others turned their heads, only to see Qin Wentian rushing towards the peak of the celestial constellation fruit tree, where the experts were gathered. Has this fellow gone mad? Ji Shui's countenance stiffened when she saw Qin Wentian's actions. Those 4 constellation fruits were the hardest to obtain, and many had failed in their attempts. Not only that, other than them, the other experts were all gathered there. If they rushed over now, the chances of success would be too low, and it would be extremely dangerous. Yinting and the others had extremely ugly expressions on their faces when they saw Qin Wentian ignoring their encirclement, and actually leaving so easily. Inclining their heads, they soared into the air, staring at Qin Wentian as though they were looking at a dead man. Chapter 492. The ancient tree towered into the skies. It was unknown how many growth rings it had. At this moment, Qin Wentian was walking towards the constellation fruit that contained the mandate of space. He didn't want to obtain this fruit for himself, but for Qing. From the Sky Harmony City until now, there were many people who had helped him before. Foster father Qin Chuan, teacher Mustang, senior sister Luo Huan, fairy Qing Mei. To many people, Qin Wentian owed them all. To Qing he owed her the most. Qing wasn't good with words. She didn't speak much, and was always cold. Back then, she only obeyed fairy Qing Mei's orders, silently protecting him. And this protection lasted for 7 to 8 years. During these 8 years, whenever he was on the brink of death, the person who appeared would always be Qing. During the battle at the Pill Emperor Hall, although he was heavily injured, he could still remember the silhouette of Qing, descending from the skies. When he transformed into a great rock, although that woman didn't speak, she still accompanied him silently. Finally, she helped him obtain the great Nirvana immortal art. He didn't know how much Qing had sacrificed for him, but at the very least, he knew that her love for him was extremely heavy. Qing is proficient in the mandate of space, This constellation fruit that contains the mandate of space would be of great help to her. I have to obtain this fruit no matter what. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with an intense determination. At this moment, the surrounding area was filled with experts, and the majority of them were all advancing forward, wanting to pluck the constellation fruit. However, how could it be so difficult to obtain a constellation fruit that contained the mandate of space? The closer one got to it, the more chaotic the space around it became. If one wanted to advance forward, they would end up walking in the wrong direction instead. Not only that, there was also a powerful spatial laceration force within. Hence up until now, no one had succeeded. Unless there was an expert who was extremely proficient in the mandate of space, they might be able to obtain it easily. Below, Yinting and the others who were chasing after Qin Wentian could be seen rushing over. The demonic qi radiating from Qin Wentian was extremely terrifying. He directly took a step forward as a surge of spatial energy enveloped him. Yinting, who was chasing after him, lifted his palms and attacked. The lightning python devoured everything, yet it seemed as though it had slammed into a spatial barrier. Qin Wentian had already entered the spatial dimension of the constellation fruits. When Qin Wentian stepped into the surroundings of the space mandate fruit, he discovered that he had stepped into a different dimension. Waves of terrifying energy swept over him, as though wanting to tear his body apart. This dimension seems to be independent. The space here seems to be in a state of disorder. Qin Wentian abruptly retreated when he saw a spatial beam slashing his way. After which, he dashed forward once more. Although the space here was somewhat distorted, his footsteps were still resolute as he advanced towards the location of the constellation fruits. Qin Wentian had a strange feeling. He was clearly only a step away from the constellation fruits, yet it felt as though he was separated by several layers of space, as though he was very far away. Strands of spatial energy tore through the air. Qin Wentian's blood surged. His eyes were filled with determination as he continued advancing forward. An instant later, a few other figures appeared in the space he was in. Among them, there was actually an extremely beautiful silhouette, the princess of Xianqing City, Shangyu. Qin Wentian could sense that the two of them were currently in the same space. "It's you." Shangyu stared at Qin Wentian as a cold intent flickered in her eyes. Qin Wentian casually cast a glance at her, before he continued advancing forward. The spatial energy around him grew stronger and stronger, causing the demonic qi around him to churn wildly. The mandate of space is truly tyrannical. If I can cultivate a true intent of my mandate, I would be able to manifest a celestial phenomenon. The might of my mandate would be even more powerful compared to ordinary celestial phenomenon ascendants. Qin Wentian mused. Although cultivation depended on the person, and the same mandate could unleash different levels of might in the hands of different people, there were still some mandates that had an advantage over others. Hand over the spatial brush. A voice drifted over from behind Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian abruptly turned and slammed his palms down. A demonic dragon roared as its aura towered up into the skies. Just a casual palm strike of his contained an incomparably terrifying might. Shangyu lifted her palms to receive the attack. However, her cultivation base was only at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. How could she compare against Qin Wentian, who was at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper? The instant the two of them collided, the dragon imprint transformed into waves of formless energy that gushed into Shangyu's body, causing her robes to be torn apart. Pung! The violent force of the impact forced Shangyu to retreat explosively. Her eyes turned cold as she stared at Qin Wentian. The collar of her robes was torn apart, revealing her snow-white neck. Do you really think that idiot would have a chance just because he fought for the spatial brush? Qin Wentian glanced at Shangyu. Shangyu only felt a terrifying surge of energy gushing into her sea of consciousness, causing an unsightly expression to appear on her face. The current Qin Wentian was indeed much stronger than what she had imagined. Busy. At the instant Qin Wentian turned, Shangyu's body abruptly erupted with the might of her bloodline. In that instant, her entire body exuded a cold killing intent. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, causing people to shiver in fear. This kind of pressure was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Shang Yu was a direct descendant of the royal clan of Grand Shang. She possessed the power of her bloodline, the rebirth bloodline. The so-called rebirth bloodline, when activated, would allow the power of the bloodline to permeate every single part of the body, causing every part of the body to be filled with a powerful vitality, akin to the power of rebirth. Such a powerful vitality would allow the body of the possessor of the rebirth bloodline to experience an all-around upgrade, as well as the vitality of the possessor. Everything in the body would be stimulated, and when the user attacked, the amount of energy they could muster would naturally be more ferocious. The energy in the body circulated frenziedly, causing one's defense to be greatly enhanced as well. When this kind of bloodline was activated, even if the power of one's bloodline wasn't particularly powerful, their combat prowess would still be multiplied. Qin Wentian turned his head, and upon seeing the changes in Shang Yu, he instantly knew that Shang Yu had activated the power of her bloodline. Not only that, when he saw the coldness in Shang Yu's pitch-black eyes, as well as her long hair that resembled a waterfall, he knew that Shang Yu's bloodline wasn't weak at all. The power of one's bloodline was innate, it was extremely miraculous. Qin Wentian knew that he possessed a powerful demonic bloodline that could allow him to enter a berserk and demonic state, even breaking through to the next level. Just like now, demonic qi towered up into the skies, akin to the sovereign of demons. Although he was at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, he actually unleashed the aura of a 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Who says I can't fight? Shang Yu, as the genius princess of the Xian King's manor, was extremely outstanding in terms of both strength and appearance. How could she endure Qin Wentian's disdain? Her astral nova manifested. It was in the form of a sword. This sword was as cold as winter water, contrasting perfectly with Shang Yu's current demeanor. An intense killing intent permeated the air, causing the temperature of the surroundings to plunge, causing people to feel as though their bodies were about to be sealed in ice. With Shang Yu at the center, numerous illusory images of ice manifested in her surroundings. With a single slash of her sword, the entire space seemed to be sealed in ice, leaving only her and Qin Wentian. That coldness directly seeped into Qin Wentian's body, and with every inch the sword advanced, the coldness from Qin Wentian's body grew even stronger. When Qin Wentian sensed this intent, he suddenly understood why Shang Yu wanted the spatial brush no matter what. Most probably, the energy she wanted to cultivate in the next cultivation realm was none other than the mandate of space. Not only did she want to use the spatial brush to inscribe divine inscriptions, she also wanted to borrow the power of the spatial brush to sense the wondrous mandate of space. And now, she wanted to seize the space constellation fruits. But no matter what her motive was, no matter what relationship she had with Qin Wentian, nobody would be able to stop him from seizing the space constellation fruits. Stepping out, a terrifying aura gushed forth unceasingly. The aura of a demon monarch grew even more intense as his long hair fluttered in the wind. Boom boom boom. Qin Wentian consecutively took 4 steps forward. A sword qi engulfed the heavens and earth. The killing sword might directly gushed into Shang Yu's body, yet Shang Yu's sword also slashed over, directly piercing into Qin Wentian's body. Scram. Qin Wentian's finger pressed downwards, as the entirety of his energy and sword might converged into a single finger strike. Heaven-breaking finger, a single finger strike that could break the heavens. As the finger descended, Qin Wentian flicked his sleeves as he turned and continued forward. Upon seeing Shang-Chi, Jianjingtian, and the others getting closer to the constellation fruits, his countenance turned heavy. If the constellation fruits landed in their hands, it would be much more difficult for him to seize them. Qin Wentian ignored everything and stepped out. With a wave of his hand, an ancient scroll appeared, directly wrapping around his body. Qin Wentian's body began to emanate the power of space. I wonder if I can sense the power of space? Qin Wentian closed his eyes as an intense sense of perception gushed forth. He stood at his original location waiting. It was already too late for him to take one step at a time. He only had a single chance, and that was to directly step through the spatial barrier. Using the power of space from his body, he tried to sense the entire space around him. It was as though the power of space was flowing within him. Until an instant later, the entire space became a straight line. In that instant, There were no spatial barriers between them and the constellation fruits. Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian stepped out, finally passing the final checkpoint. Their eyes flickered with excitement. And at the same instant, Qin Wentian activated stellar transposition. Stellar transposition wasn't teleportation. It wasn't a spatial-level innate technique. It was merely an explosive burst of astral energy, allowing one's speed to reach an extreme in an instant. Hence, it was useless to use stellar transposition when there was a spatial barrier. But now Qin Wentian's silhouette accurately appeared at the location where the constellation fruits were located. Intense spatial energy ravaged his body, yet he didn't hesitate as he stretched his hands out, grabbing towards the constellation fruits. His eyes flickered with a terrifying determination. With a clench of his fist, the two constellation fruits were caught in his grasp. The terrifying spatial energy caused his palms to be lacerated, as traces of blood appeared on the surface. Behind him, Shang-Chi had a look of astonishment on his face, as he stared at the silhouette that suddenly appeared. It was as though he had sensed something as a terrifying light flickered in his eyes. Die. The mad demon halberd in Shang-Chi's hands violently stabbed out, wanting to annihilate Qin Wentian on the spot. Courting death. Jian Jingtian also stared in astonishment at the silhouette that just appeared, after which his sword slashed out explosively. Qin Wentian exerted strength in his hands, plucking the constellation fruits from the tree before keeping them away. The spatial pressure dissipated. The mad demon halberd had already pierced through his body, causing fresh blood to flow. At the same time, a resplendent sword light shot out, piercing into his skin. Pung! Stellar transposition was executed as his body soared up into the air. He didn't retreat, but soared up into the air instead. After keeping the constellation fruits, he touched the wound on his waist. There was blood flowing out, and an intense pain could be felt from that wound. Earlier, if he was slightly slower, the mad demon halberd would have already pierced into his body. There was also traces of blood beside his ear, an injury caused by the sword qi. As for Shang Yu, who was fighting against him earlier, she had just blocked the heaven-breaking finger, and was coughing out a mouthful of blood. When she inclined her head, she saw Qin Wentian snatching away the constellation fruits. After which the spatial energy dissipated. Her beautiful eyes stared at the silhouette in front of her. Without the obstruction of the spatial energy, everyone soared up into the air and surrounded Qin Wentian. Was this person not afraid of death after obtaining the constellation fruits? At this moment, Shang Yu and Jian Jingtian were both enraged. How could Qin Wentian swallow the constellation fruits? Chapter 493. Qin Wentian's silhouette soared upwards as he inclined his head and stared at the sky. Over there, the final two constellation fruits could be seen, both glowing with a crimson hue. Qin Wentian had personally witnessed the death of the two constellation fruits not long ago. There was no sound or aura, and there weren't any injuries on them. These were the hardest fruits to obtain. As he neared, Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. He could feel every part of his body trembling, and the rate of his heartbeat was so fast that it felt as though his meridians were about to shatter. This caused him to halt his steps as he stared at the crimson fruits in the air, drawing in a deep breath. At this moment, Qin Wentian stood on a tree branch, while Jian Jingtian and Shang-Chi appeared on his left and right. Below him, there were many silhouettes standing on the branches of the celestial constellation tree, all of them staring at him. Other than the two constellation fruits of Great Earth, he had also obtained two more space constellation fruits. Right now, in the eyes of everyone, he was undoubtedly a treasure. Compared to the two constellation fruits above, his value was even greater. You won't be able to keep the constellation fruits. Do you want the fruits or do you want your life? Shang-Chi wielded the terrifying berserk devil halberd in his hands as his blood surged. Every strand of his hair was akin to a sharp blade, and a brilliant light circulated in his palms, exuding an aura of sharpness. At the same time, a blood-colored glow circulated around his body, striking fear into the hearts of those who saw it. Hand over the constellation fruits to me, and I will let you leave. Jian Jingtian stood on the other side, staring at Qin Wentian. At this moment, Yin Ting, Xie Yu, and Jin Yan all arrived on the tree branches below. Their auras were all extremely terrifying, and they surrounded Qin Wentian in this narrow space. Madman! Ji Shue's beautiful eyes flashed with worry when she saw Qin Wentian facing off against so many experts alone. This fellow didn't care about anything else, and was almost struck by the berserk devil halberd. Now that he was surrounded, did he really not want his life anymore? If you want the constellation fruits, follow me up. Qin Wentian soared up into the air as his heart pounded violently. It was as though every inch of his body was pulsating violently, on the verge of collapse. This kind of pulsation was caused by his heart. It was too terrifying. Shang-Chi stepped out, stretching out his palms as a blood-colored palm imprint grabbed towards Qin Wentian. This palm imprint contained a towering blood mite, causing Qin Wentian's blood to surge chaotically as though it was about to break out of his body. Qin Wentian coldly snorted. Fresh blood stained his palms, and with a wave of his hands, a blood-colored curse imprint blasted out. With a thunderous boom, a blood-colored mite permeated the air. But at the same time, Jian Jingtian and the others below also stepped up, continuing to press down on Qin Wentian. At this instant, the pressure Qin Wentian felt was too terrifying. It was as though he was a sheep in a pack of wolves, and could die at any moment. Since you want it so much, then come up again. Qin Wentian continued ascending the tree branch, getting closer to the dark red constellation fruits. The pulsation of his body grew even more terrifying, to the point where one could even hear the sound of his heart pounding unceasingly. No matter what, you can't escape death. Shang-Chi's voice was cold as he continued upwards. The sword halo around Jian Jingtian's body enveloped his entire body. The people below weren't willing to be outdone. They started to challenge the pressure from the last two constellation fruits. Instantly, with Qin Wentian as the center, over 10 fifth-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns moved closer to the constellation fruits, or more accurately, they moved closer to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian single-handedly led all the experts here into the envelopment of the celestial constellation tree. Boom boom. Qin Wentian's heart pounded unceasingly. He closed his eyes and quietly sensed the trembling of his body, as though he was trying to get used to it. The power of his bloodline thrummed like an ocean. Lifting his foot, Qin Wentian stepped out once more, causing the hearts of the crowd to pound wildly. Unknowingly, Qin Wentian, who was using the constellation fruits to evade his pursuers, was only 2 steps away from the constellation fruits. Could it be that Qin Wentian also wanted the last 2 constellation fruits that were the hardest to obtain? Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, and the other demon-level characters all had heavy expressions on their faces. They could guess what Qin Wentian was thinking. They stared at Qin Wentian. This man was extremely audacious, wanting to hog half of the constellation fruits for himself in front of so many geniuses from the various powers. Ji Shui and Su Feng were also among the crowd. Staring at Qin Wentian, who was the closest to the constellation fruits, they also felt that this was ridiculous. This person's actions were too crazy. Even for Shang-Chi, he would have to consider if he could withstand the pressure if he wanted to take half of the constellation fruits. Yet this white-robed young man seemed to have no fear at all. Or maybe he didn't know how to write the word fear. At this moment, Qin Wentian was feeling an unprecedented pressure. However, this pressure didn't come from those demon-level characters, but rather it came from the constellation fruits. These 2 constellation fruits were truly capable of killing. His heartbeat had already reached a terrifying frequency. Drawing in a deep breath, Qin Wentian calmed his heart, doing his best to stabilize his state of mind. Every part of his body circulated in sync with his heartbeat, reaching a state of harmony. His steps once again advanced forward. At this moment, not only Qin Wentian, the others who came with him had no time to care about anything else. They could only stabilize their own heartbeats, not daring to attack recklessly. Pooh! Qin Wentian coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood, but he still stood there steadily, staring at the constellation fruits in front of him. What kind of mandate is this? Qin Wentian had never seen such a thing before, yet he felt a strong desire in his heart. He wanted to get his hands on the constellation fruits. Only the last step is left. Shang Yu, who was below, stared at the white-robed young man on the tree branch. Her heart was filled with shock. This young man was a madman. Qin Wentian wanted to stabilize his breathing, allowing his body to regain its balance. But below him, Xieyu's 9 arms simultaneously shot out terrifying arrows, aiming straight at Qin Wentian. At the same time, 2 of the arrows were locked onto Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian. The current Qin Wentian, as long as there was an external attack, his heart would explode and he would die. As for the interspatial ring on his body after his death, Qin Wentian had to obtain it no matter what. Careful! Ji Shui shouted to Qin Wentian. Given Qin Wentian's perception, he could naturally sense that there was a powerful killing intent locked onto him from behind. Not only him, Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian could feel it as well. Their auras gushed forth as they prepared to unleash their attacks. They had the same thoughts as Xieyou. If Qin Wentian died, they had to obtain his interspatial ring no matter what. Pung pung pung. The silhouettes of the experts all stepped out, moving in the direction of Qin Wentian. They didn't care about the immense pressure. They had to fight for a sliver of an opportunity. Qin Wentian didn't move at all. From the perspective of the spectators, Qin Wentian's entire body was completely tensed up, and he had no way to move at all. This move of Xieyu's was truly sinister. No wonder he was the one who was the furthest away from the constellation fruits. It seemed like Xieyou had long since planned this, and was prepared to fire his arrow at the most crucial moment. This white-robed young man is truly courting death. He actually dared to get so close to the constellation fruits. The closer he is to the constellation fruits, the weaker his resistance would be. Some of the weaker cultivators silently mused as they stared at the crowd in the air. He had obtained quite a number of constellation fruits, but it was all for the benefit of someone else. This person would die for sure. Xieyu's arrow would definitely penetrate through him. There was no way for him to block it. He could only wait for his death. But at this moment, the crowd only saw Qin Wentian's palms moving as both of his palms blasted downwards. Boom boom. The sound of a bell chime rang out, and at this moment, it was as though a series of ancient bells had appeared in the air. This was none other than the heartbreak chime. In that instant, the countenances of Shang-Chi and the others instantly turned pale. They were already very close to the constellation fruits, and their hearts were pounding furiously. At this moment, Qin Wentian's innate technique was actually the heartbreak chime. Pooh! Shang-Chi felt as though his heart was about to explode. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body plummeted downwards. He circulated all of his energy to protect his heart from shattering. Pooh pu pu. At this moment, not only Shang-Chi, everyone else was also plummeting downwards, coughing out fresh blood. The reverberation of the bell chime was like a talisman that hastened death. The corpses of the fallen cultivators blocked Qin Wentian from the range of Xieyu's arrow. Unless Xieyu's arrow could change direction, it would penetrate through the corpses of the fallen cultivators before continuing on towards Qin Wentian. Xieyou obviously didn't dare to do that. Not only that, he himself had also coughed out a mouthful of blood as his countenance turned pale. The scene at this moment could only be described as magnificent. Those who were waiting for Qin Wentian's death below were all stunned as they stared at the scene in front of them. Regardless of geniuses or geniuses, all of them plummeted downwards, including Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, Yin Ting, and the others. None of them were able to escape. At the instant Qin Wentian's palms slammed out, the bodies of the geniuses all fell horizontally to the ground. It was as though all of this was to serve as a foil to that white-robed figure standing there proudly. He wasn't doing this to evade the pursuit. He was doing this for the constellation fruits. At the last step, he used a single palm strike to destroy all his opponents. He alone wanted to become enemies with all the geniuses present. So what of it? Since he dared to seize half of the constellation fruits, what else wouldn't he dare to do? Shang Yu's beautiful eyes froze. This scene caused her heart to tremble, causing her to hold her breath. It was as though she didn't dare to believe what she was seeing was real. This was too surreal. On her beautiful face, there was only shock left. Ji Shui and Su Feng's hearts twitched. They were deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. Ji Shui's lips were slightly agape. He dared to do this. So it turned out that he already had the confidence to do so. He was waiting for the geniuses to chase after him, getting closer to the constellation fruits, waiting for the decisive strike that would decide everything. At this moment, no one else dared to disturb him. The white-robed young man had his back facing the geniuses. He didn't even turn his head back to glance at them. When he felt the pressure from the constellation fruits, he already knew that when everyone neared the constellation fruits, the might unleashed by the heartbreak ancient bell would be extremely destructive, capable of sweeping away everything. That white-robed young man took the final step, keeping the dark red constellation fruits into his pouch. All the energy from the heartbreak ancient bell vanished in an instant, leaving a deep impression in the hearts of the spectators. Even for Shangyu, when that young man became a legend many years later, she would still remember this day. The first time that white-robed young man caused her heart to palpitate. Chapter 494. Now that the constellation fruit tree no longer contained the will of mandates, the pressure exerted by the constellation tree no longer had any effect on the others. Right now, on this towering ancient tree, there were only lush branches and leaves. Not a single constellation fruit was left, and Qin Wentian himself had obtained 6 constellation fruits. Little Rascal, who had already sneaked to the side, had also obtained 1. This meant that Qin Wentian alone had obtained a total of 7 constellation fruits. As for this constellation fruit tree, naturally no one was willing to destroy it. Maybe it would be able to bear more constellation fruits in the future, but that would be something that would only happen many years later. Most probably, the other major powers wouldn't give up on the fight for it, but that wasn't a problem to be considered now. Chi-Chi. Several silhouettes fell to the ground. These were those with weaker heart meridians. Under the might of Qin Wentian's heartbreak chime, their heart meridians were directly shattered, their life force severed. Earlier, when they were close to the constellation fruits, their hearts were too tensed up, akin to a taut bowstring. At this moment, it was as if a saber had sliced through them, easily breaking them apart. Leaving aside them, even Shang-Chi, who had a powerful bloodline, felt his heart meridians being injured. He fell to the ground unsteadily, almost falling to his knees. He directly swallowed a medicinal pill to stabilize his heart meridians, but the killing intent in his eyes was incomparably terrifying. Inclining his head, he stared at the constellation tree in the air, only to see Qin Wentian soaring through the air like a great rock. A single person had obtained 6 constellation fruits. How could he not leave? Everyone here, even if they obtained 2 or 3 constellation fruits, had no choice but to leave. Stop him. Kill him. Numerous voices rang out at the same instant. Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, and the other heavens chosen all called out. Those who weren't injured, their silhouettes flickered as they rushed towards Qin Wentian. The one chasing the fastest was none other than Xiaoyu. Earlier, he was the furthest away from the constellation fruits, and hence he was the one who suffered the least damage. Upon seeing Qin Wentian wanting to flee, all 9 of his arms aimed their arrows at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian felt the terrifying arrow coming at him from behind. It flashed like a giant rock, and the arrow flew over his head. Little Rascal dashed over and appeared at his side. 1 man and 1 beast dashed madly into the mountain range. There was no longer any need to stay behind. Where are you going? An ear-piercing voice drifted over as a raging wind howled. Qin Wentian only felt a shadow above his head. Inclining his head, he saw a silhouette appearing there. This person was none other than the heaven chosen of the Wind Rock aristocrat clan, Feng Yunhe. At this moment, a pair of wings had sprouted out of his body, resembling a great rock. His speed was even faster than everyone else here. The Feng Yunhe swooped downwards, stretching out his hands. His hands were akin to golden claws, indestructible and unstoppable, directly grabbing towards Qin Wentian. What a powerful attack! Qin Wentian could feel the terrifying power of the claws. The divine energy in his body roared and his blood surged. He blasted out a seal and the curse aura filled the air. This was the blood curse imprint. Bang! As the intense attacks collided, Feng Yunhe seemed to have sensed the might of the curse. His silhouette flickered as he vanished from his original location. Qin Wentian stared ahead, only to see a silhouette floating there. It was none other than Feng Yunhe. Qin Wentian looked at the Feng Yunhe blocking his way. The Feng Yunhe had a pair of wings, and there seemed to be a bloodline power roaring within it. The Windrock Aristocrat clan, the meaning behind their name was Windrock. The blood of the Windrock clan flowed in their veins. In the Xian King city, the speed of those from the Windrock Aristocrat clan was unrivaled. Even the king manor of the Xian King city couldn't compare to them. As a heavens chosen from the Windrock Aristocrat clan, Feng Yunhe naturally wasn't someone ordinary 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns could compare to. His combat prowess was simply too great. Qin Wentian could kill so many 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns alone. If Feng Yunhe was given enough time, he would be able to do the same as well. Ordinary cultivators at the same level of cultivation couldn't compare to him in terms of speed and attack power. How could they even fight against him? Feng Yunhe wasn't just fast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become a heaven's chosen. Spit out the constellation fruits. Feng Yunhe blocked Qin Wentian's path. Momentarily, the people behind him all rushed over. Qin Wentian naturally couldn't continue fighting. His silhouette flickered as he landed on Little Rascal's back. A pair of golden wings appeared on Little Rascal's back as it arced through the air, flying away. Oomph! Feng Yunhe coldly snorted. Momentarily, his body was akin to a true rock in the wind. With a wave of his palms, numerous golden spears appeared in his talons. The raging wind howled. Feng Yunhe locked onto Qin Wentian. The golden spears blasted out explosively, blocking Qin Wentian's path of retreat. At the same time, another golden spear pierced towards Qin Wentian's body. Little Rascal rapidly descended from the air, directly landing on the ground, dodging the golden spears. Feng Yunhe's silhouette flickered as he appeared in front of Qin Wentian once more, blocking Qin Wentian's path of retreat. Qin Wentian had no chance of escaping alive. A raging wind gusted as numerous silhouettes floated in the air. During this short moment of delay, many experts from the Windrock Aristocrat clan arrived. All of them had golden spears in their hands as they floated in the air, coldly staring at Qin Wentian below. Behind them, the experts from the various powers, including Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian and the other heavens chosen, all had terrifying killing intent flickering in their eyes as they locked onto Qin Wentian from afar. Ji Shui madly sprinted forward, yet Su Feng pulled her back. Ji Shui turned her head back, only to see that Su Feng wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the vast army ahead as he shook his head. "I'm the same as you, I owe him my life. But if we fight now, it would be no different from sending ourselves to our deaths. There's no meaning to it." Su Feng was clearly a rational person. From an emotional point of view, they should help Qin Wentian. But from a rational point of view, such a method of death would be pointless. This voice was extremely cruel. Ji Shui's mouth was agape as she stared at the boundless aura ahead. She felt a deep sense of helplessness. Although her strength wasn't bad, against so many experts, there was no way she could survive. That crimson-eyed demonic beast has disappeared. Maybe it died in his hands. Since he dared to seize the constellation fruits, maybe he has some life-saving methods. Su Feng spoke in a low voice. Although he had his suspicions as well, in such a situation, there was no way they could survive. His words caused Ji Shui's eyes to brighten. Maybe he really did have a solution. Shang Yu's silhouette flickered as she lagged behind. Staring at the experts ahead, they were like a pack of hungry wolves hunting for their prey. How could that white-robed young man survive in such a dire situation? Qin Wentian stood on the ground. His footsteps halted as he stared at the silhouettes radiating a towering killing intent in the air. In addition to the fact that there were more and more cultivators gathering behind him, he was sure that as long as they all attacked together, he would be reduced to dust. "Hand over the constellation fruits and I won't kill you. You might still have a chance to live." Feng Yunhe roared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian glanced at Feng Yunhe as his blood surged within him. His gaze was incomparably demonic as his long hair fluttered in the wind. Stepping out, his sword intent permeated the air, sweeping over everything. Boom boom boom. Qin Wentian continued stepping out. With every step he took, the sword chi he emitted grew stronger and stronger. When his fourth step landed, boundless sword chi appeared in the air. "You are courting death," Feng Yunhe roared. His golden spear pierced through the air, and at the instant he acted, the silhouettes in the air all reacted at the same time. Countless golden spears pierced through everything, shooting towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see anything. He took the fifth step, and as his foot landed, the bodies of those in the surroundings trembled violently. It was as though sword qi had penetrated through their bodies. Qin Wentian's astral nova flashed as it manifested. The astral nova trembled violently, as though a forest of swords had appeared between the heavens and the earth. However, the golden spears all shot over. Pung! Astral light erupted as his silhouette vanished, directly reappearing in the air. It was as though in that instant earlier, he had passed through the gaps between the golden spears and soared up into the air. After which, he took his sixth step. The sound of swords resonated in the air, causing the countenances of the people in the surroundings to drastically change. They hurriedly retreated while raising their palms to attack. The astral novas in their bodies were all trembling violently, as though streams of sword intent were directly penetrating into their bodies. Fresh blood splashed out as their arms were torn apart by the sword intent. Boundless sword might ravaged their bodies. Even Feng Yunhe's body trembled as he sensed the sword might permeating the air. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness. Qin Wentian's body tensed up. It was difficult for him to unleash that final sword strike. The 7 Annihilation swordplay. A sword strike for each step. Every sword strike contained the might of the previous 5 swords, and each sword strike required an even stronger force to be unleashed. At this moment, for the 6th sword strike, Qin Wentian could sense the heavens and earth, transforming the energy of heaven and earth into swords. He had already reached his limit. Shang-Chi and the others howled in rage as they rushed over. When they felt that terrifying sword might, terrifying auras erupted forth from their bodies, as though sword might was circulating around them. However, after this sword strike landed, they really wanted to see how Qin Wentian would die. Jian Jingtian stepped out, as boundless sword might gushed forth from his body. Lifting his palms, the heavenly dipper sword spun madly as it whistled through the air. 1 sword gave birth to 2 swords, 2 swords gave birth to 4 swords. In front of him, a row of swords appeared, each and every one of them exuding terrifying sword qi. Die. Jian Jingtian waved his hands, as the row of swords in front of him pierced through the air, as though they could penetrate through everything, instantly arriving before Qin Wentian. However, at this instant, Qin Wentian's body seemed to have an incomparable suction force to the swords. The swords were about to penetrate through his body, yet they were forcefully halted in their tracks. Die. Jian Jingtian howled in rage. Momentarily, the row of swords continued their slaughter, wanting to annihilate Qin Wentian. Bang! A terrifying sword might abruptly erupted forth from Qin Wentian's body. It was as though the entire space around him had transformed into sword qi. Lifting his foot, Qin Wentian stomped down with great difficulty. Finally, his foot landed on the ground. With this step, the row of swords formed by Jian Jingtian actually couldn't be controlled, and were all swept backwards. At the same time, this entire space was filled with countless beams of sword light. For a period of time, fresh blood splattered through the air. It was unknown how many experts had fallen. Some even directly turned into dust, dissipating under the might of the sword intent. This time around, it wasn't merely an injury, it was a complete annihilation. Feng Yunhe, Shang-Chi and the others all retreated with explosive speed. The astral novas in their bodies trembled violently, as though under the might of that sword might. Their astral novas were on the verge of shattering. At this moment, their hearts were filled with terror. This innate technique of Qin Wentian was meant for mass killing. If it was targeted at a single person, how terrifying would the might of that attack be? This sword strike caused Qin Wentian's sword Yuanfu to be completely emptied out. The 7th sword strike of the 7 Annihilation swordplay was too terrifying, but the effect was also shocking. At least half of the experts present were either heavily injured or died on the spot. Those who block my path die. Qin Wentian roared. Astral light erupted forth as his silhouette vanished once again, ignoring the exhaustion of his astral energy. He directly appeared in front of one of the experts, and a terrifying blood-colored palm imprint slammed downwards. That person used his bare hands to block it, but after being struck by the blood-colored curse imprint, his entire arm was instantly reduced to a pile of dried bones. Moments later, the rest of his body was covered in blood as he screamed in agony as he fell from the air. Boom! After Qin Wentian killed that person, he vanished once again, reappearing in front of another expert. With a wave of his hand, an ancient bell chimed, penetrating deep into the heart of that expert, causing him to cough out blood. That expert sensed Qin Wentian's presence, and immediately retreated with explosive speed. However, it was already too late. After the heartbreak chime, Qin Wentian executed stellar transposition again. Qin Wentian's palm slashed out as the keening of a sword could be heard, slicing through the throat of that expert, killing people, seizing their lives as though he was invincible. Chapter 495. Qin Wentian's silhouette was akin to a god of slaughter, ruthlessly impacting the hearts of the crowd. In the blink of an eye, over 10 Heavenly Dipper sovereigns had fallen. These experts, if placed in any of the major powers, could all be considered as core characters. Staring ahead, Qin Wentian stood proudly in the air after the slaughter, exuding a demon-like handsomeness. Just a single glance from him was enough to cause fear in the hearts of people. It was as though he was the monarch of all demons. The constellation fruits shall be seized by those who are strong enough. Since I've already seized them, how can I allow any of you to touch them? Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he departed once more. Little rascal who had shrunk back to its original size expanded once more, transforming into a golden-colored primordial demon. It caught hold of Qin Wentian and soared into the air. In that instant, the crowd was so shocked that they paused for a moment, not daring to give chase. "Where do you think you're going?" a person behind roared. However, Qin Wentian's eyes flickered, as though he had a third eye. With a single glance, that person only felt countless demons rushing towards him. His countenance drastically changed as he fell into a dreamscape. Pucci, a scarlet demon halberd pierced right through his head. This was none other than Qin Wentian's stellar transposition, killing him with a single strike of his halberd. Qin Wentian pulled out the scarlet demon halberd as he coldly swept his eyes over the crowd. Only a few people dared to look him in the eye. Too powerful, an expert at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper was insta-killed. They didn't even have the chance to release their astral novas before they died. Scarlet demon halberd. The countenances of Shang-Chi and the others froze. Yinting also stared at the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hands. That was clearly the one forged by Qi Yezi. No wonder the scarlet demon halberd disappeared. So it turned out that it was actually in the hands of this person. Whoever dares to pursue, I'll kill them all. Qin Wentian continued moving forward. This time around, no one dared to say anything. Many people were already frightened by Qin Wentian's domineering aura, their hearts trembling. Those who were killed by Qin Wentian weren't weak at all. If they continued to chase after Qin Wentian, they wouldn't be able to defend against Qin Wentian's sure-kill attacks. Moreover, this person had a strange divine ability that was similar to teleportation. He was extremely fast, as if he could instantly shift his position. This made it impossible for them to attack as a group. Otherwise, with their strength, a group attack would be enough to destroy Qin Wentian. But now, they were shocked by Qin Wentian's ruthless and decisive killing. Qin Wentian's outburst just now was too terrifying, and his strength was too astonishing. However, even though they were stunned, the Heaven's favorites wouldn't give up just like that. Feng Yunha's silhouette flickered, like a great rock soaring in the wind. A raging wind howled, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared above Qin Wentian. Fighting so recklessly, the astral energy in his body should be depleted soon. Xiaoyu coldly spoke as he chased after Qin Wentian. His words caused the eyes of many to flicker. Indeed, they were shocked by Qin Wentian's ferocious might, but in truth, a battle of that level would definitely exhaust a terrifying amount of astral energy. Qin Wentian's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, and he used his unique bloodline to raise his aura to the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Most probably, Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to maintain his berserk state for too long. He was intentionally using this to scare them. Shang-Chi, Jianjingtian, Yin Ting and Jin Yan, the 6 heavens favorites, all chased after Qin Wentian. The others also followed behind, but they didn't dare to get too close to them. The strength of heaven's favorites was extremely high. Even if Qin Wentian suddenly attacked, they would still be able to block it. Qin Wentian and Little Rascal continued advancing. When they sensed Feng Yunhe in the air, as well as the mandate of heaven's favorites following behind, Qin Wentian's pitch-black eyes gleamed with an intense coldness. If these people didn't kill him and obtain the constellation fruits, they wouldn't give up. His footsteps halted, and in an instant, the 6 chosen surrounded him. Their astral novas and wills of their mandates erupted forth at the same time, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. BZ. The third eye in the center of his brows swept out as his will of will gushed towards the 6 people around him. He released his great dream astral nova and momentarily, a dreamlike intent enveloped this entire space, causing people to feel a sense of drowsiness. Even the illusions of their dreams could be seen flashing past their eyes. Mandate of dreams. The heavens' favorites gritted their teeth as they guarded their state of mind, not allowing themselves to be affected. No matter how strong you are, you will die here today. Jianjingtian's countenance was as sharp as a sword. Towering sword might gushed forth from his body as numerous astral novas floated before him. Slamming out with his palms, the keening of swords whistled through the air as they slashed towards Qin Wentian. The power of this sword wasn't strong. Qin Wentian merely waved his scarlet demon halberd, causing the sword chi to dissipate. However, Jianjingtian unceasingly slammed out with his palms, causing the sword chi to converge into a sword chi river that tore through the skies, gushing towards Qin Wentian. At the same time, Jianjingtian stepped out, and with every step he took, the sword chi river grew even more terrifying. His sword intent continued to converge, causing terrifying rumbling sounds to echo out in the air. This was one of the ultimate innate techniques he cultivated, Heaven Shocking Sword, capable of causing mountains and rivers to tremble. The Scarlet Demon Halberd in Qin Wentian's hand spun slightly. This Scarlet Demon Halberd was an initial grade 5th-ranked divine weapon forged by Qi Yezi. However, this 5th-ranked divine weapon was a little unique. It wasn't a direct attack type weapon. Before his death, he used his life force and soul as a sacrifice, transforming it into a dream devil intent, wanting Yin Cheng to lose his life. The Scarlet Demon Halberd was proficient in using the power of dreams. Right now, Qin Wentian wasn't too familiar with it, hence he had no way to unleash its true might. But even so, with the Scarlet Demon Halberd in his hands, it was easier for one to fall into a dream devil trap. Although it wasn't a direct attack type weapon, it was still much more tyrannical compared to ordinary 4th-ranked divine weapons. His silhouette shuddered as the Scarlet Demon Halberd in Qin Wentian's hands blasted out explosively, slamming into the sword chi river. A terrifying surge of energy permeated through, and the sword chi from Qin Wentian grew even more intense, causing the sword chi river to seethe with madness. Yin Ting stood in the air as he coldly snorted. His body was shrouded by the power of millions of lightning bolts, resembling a god of thunder. He stretched out his palms as boundless lightning energy intertwined with each other. Finally, a bolt of lightning blasted down from the sky. His palms blasted downwards, and in an instant, a palm imprint of a lightning god exuded a towering might that blotted out the heavens and earth as it blasted towards Qin Wentian. Jin Yan unleashed a golden flame lotus that was compressed to the extreme. Shang-Chi and Feng Yunhe also unleashed their own attacks. When Xiaoyu saw that everyone had unleashed their attacks, his 9 arrows shot through the air, converging into one as they shot towards Qin Wentian. In that instant, all of Qin Wentian's paths of retreat were sealed. Although his stellar transposition allowed him to teleport, it wasn't a true spatial teleportation. Instead, it was a matter of speed. When all paths of retreat were sealed, no matter how fast he was, he had to be able to evade the attacks of the innate techniques. The attacks of Heaven's Chosen are truly extraordinary. This Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to escape even if he grew wings. The spectators silently mused. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's sword-type astral nova erupted forth in rage, colliding with the river of sword chi. At the same time, with a wave of his palms, his heavenly hammer astral nova smashed towards the incoming arrows of Xiaoyu. With a stomp of his feet, astral light erupted forth as he executed stellar transposition, aiming in the direction of Xiaoyu. Peng. Numerous tyrannical attacks blasted towards the location where Qin Wentian was standing. The earth shattered as a deep crater appeared. The heavenly hammer astral soul swept out with terrifying might, shattering the incoming arrows as it continued on its way towards Xiaoyu. After the heavenly hammer astral soul, Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared. Traces of blood could be seen on his back, and his long hair was in a mess. Earlier, although he had executed stellar transposition, he was still struck by the aftershock of the attack. His astral nova is so powerful. In the hearts of the spectators, Qin Wentian's first 3 astral souls were all at the 5th heavenly layer. His first astral soul was also at the 5th heavenly layer, and the astral nova he condensed was also condensed from divine energy. For ordinary people, their first astral soul would usually be at the 2nd or 3rd heavenly layer, and the might of their astral novas would naturally be much weaker compared to their later astral novas. Qin Wentian stared at the incomparably gigantic heavenly hammer astral soul smashing towards him. His 9 arms simultaneously blasted out a terrifying golden fist light. Pung. The heavenly hammer astral soul was repelled by the impact force. Qin Wentian waved his palms and directly blasted out an attack behind him. At the same time, his third eye frenziedly swept its gaze over Xiaoyu, causing Xiaoyu's sea of consciousness to tremble violently. It was as though countless demons had appeared and were trying to tear him apart. Busy. Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd slashed out, as the power of the dream devil grew even more terrifying. Xiaoyu stepped out, and the astral novas above his head simultaneously erupted forth. A terrifying fist smashed out, and at the same time, an earthen palm imprint blasted out. Scram! Xiaoyu howled in rage. However, he only saw an explosion of astral light as Qin Wentian's silhouette directly vanished. Xiaoyu's countenance drastically changed and instantly, his 9 arms swept backwards, aiming for the back of his body. At the same time, the other experts also rushed over. Feng Yunhe's speed was the fastest, and his golden claws smashed downwards, aiming for Qin Wentian's head. Die! Qin Wentian's will of mandate frenziedly gushed into Xiaoyu's sea of consciousness, while the scarlet demon halberd shot towards Xiaoyu's head. The 9 arms of Qin Wentian forcibly grabbed hold of the scarlet demon halberd, as a terrifying pressure bore down on the halberd. Pung! The scarlet demon halberd erupted forth with a terrifying power of the dream devil. At this moment, Xiaoyu was already in a daze, and he could only rely on his instincts to defend himself, not allowing the scarlet demon halberd to strike him. The mandate of earth and metal, their defense is truly terrifying. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. He retracted the scarlet demon halberd and slashed out towards Feng Yunhe. The two of them both shuddered violently, and Shang-Chi's blood palm imprint slashed over. Qin Wentian only felt that he was about to be drowned within this attack. Little rascal! Qin Wentian roared. Little rascal, who hadn't participated in the battle all this while, leaped onto Qin Wentian's body, and at the same time, his astral nova returned to his body. With a pull of his palms, the ancient scroll that enveloped Qin Wentian began to shimmer with an intense spatial energy. Not good. The countenances of the experts were all taken aback. This was a spatial scroll. Jian Jingtian's astral nova directly pierced out, instantly arriving before Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd smashed out, and with a thunderous boom, the impact caused his internal organs to tremble. Almost at the same time, a violent barrage of attacks rained down on Qin Wentian, while the spatial energy permeated the area to the extreme. A brilliant light flashed, and Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from his original location. Rumble! The ground where Qin Wentian was standing at crumbled apart. The 6 chosen all stood there in a daze. Qin Wentian had vanished. Right before their eyes he left with 7 constellation fruits. Chapter 496. The celestial constellation fruit tree had been nurtured for an unknown number of years, and there were only a total of over 10 fruits. The strongest powers in Xianqing City, including the heavens chosen from the various major powers, all came here to vie for the fruits. But in the end, half of the fruits were taken away by a young man in white with a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, he did so openly, killing more than half of the participants. Even when facing against the 6 heavens chosen, he still had the strength to resist. This matter would soon spread to Xianqing City. At that time, the faces of those heavens chosen would all be thrown away. Too shameful. There were quite a few who didn't even manage to obtain a single constellation fruit. To them, this was an absolute humiliation. Their eyes stared dumbly at the deep crater in front of them. An intense killing intent gushed forth from Shang-Chi and the others. He fled. That was a spatial scroll. Shang-Yu, Shang-Chi called out, only to see Shang-Yu dashing over from behind. How could the impact of this battle not be intense? That young man in white was actually so terrifying. When she saw the spatial scroll, she instantly understood why Qin Wentian would fight with her for the spatial brush. He himself was a divine inscriptionist, and one that could inscribe divine inscriptions. To him, the spatial brush was equivalent to a spatial scroll. He naturally wanted it. Not only that, given Qin Wentian's personality, he would dare to snatch 7 constellation fruits under such circumstances. What was the point of him fighting with her for the spatial brush? Comparing the two of them, competing with her for the spatial brush was simply not worth mentioning. Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were behind, were also stunned speechless. So it turned out that he could have left long ago, but he didn't want to waste the spatial scroll. Instead, he chose to slaughter his way out, and even wanted to kill Xiaoyu at the very last moment. He had once saved Xiaoyu's life, but Xiaoyu wanted to kill him instead. Before he left, he still wanted to reclaim Xiaoyu's life, but he was just a hair away. Su Feng and Ji Shui were thinking that if it wasn't for the 6 geniuses ganging up on him, Xiaoyu would have already died on the spot. Shang-Yu, that spatial scroll, was it created after he seized the spatial brush? Shang-Chi asked Shang-Yu. It should be. He is a divine inscriptionist grandmaster. Shang-Yu nodded. The spectators were even more astonished. Just how powerful was Qin Wentian's combat prowess? Not only that, he was also a divine inscriptionist who could inscribe divine inscriptions on his own. If that's the case, he probably has more than one scroll. Shang-Chi's countenance was extremely sinister. Evidently, he had no intentions of sparing Qin Wentian. The value of those constellation fruits was indescribable, and after suffering such a huge loss, how could he give up so easily? However, if Qin Wentian had many space scrolls, even if they found him again, there would be no way to make him stay. At this moment, Shang-Chi and the others abruptly inclined their heads and stared at the sky behind them. Over there, a large number of experts from the various major powers had finally arrived. Sadly, it was already too late. They didn't manage to obtain many constellation fruits. All of them were with Qin Wentian. What happened? The experts who had just arrived were puzzled when they saw the situation. Weren't they supposed to be fighting and snatching? Why were they all standing here in a daze? Uncle. Shang-Yu glanced at the person who asked the question, after which she explained to him what had happened. Instantly, the experts who had just arrived understood what was going on. Doesn't the Windrock aristocrat clan have the 10,000 miles tracking mirror? The expert from the King's Manor turned his gaze onto an expert from the Windrock aristocrat clan as he asked. The expert from the Windrock aristocrat clan nodded his head. If he has the space scrolls, even if we manage to track him, he would instantly flee. Hence, we need the aid of the sealing treasure of the Yin clan. That's right. If both the Windrock aristocrat clan and Yin clan are willing to take out their treasures, there's no way for him to escape. The 10,000 miles tracking mirror would be able to lock onto an area of a few thousand miles. And given his strength, even if he inscribed the space scrolls, he would still be able to teleport a distance of 1,000 miles. The expert from the heaven-shocking sword sect nodded his head as he spoke. The eyes of the experts from the Windrock aristocrat clan and Yin clan flickered with uncertainty. After which, the expert from the Windrock aristocrat clan spoke. It's easy to say, but these 2 treasures are extraordinary. We have to report it to our clan first before we can claim it. In that case, after we obtain the constellation fruits, Can't we split it among the major powers? The Windrock Aristocrat clan and Een clan can each take 2. As for the remaining 3, that's our problem. How about it? The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Windrock Aristocrat clan and Een clan pondered for a moment, but they didn't dare to offend the King's Manor too much. Hence they nodded their heads in agreement. As for the other major powers, they were all silently cursing in their hearts. The King's Manor was extremely powerful. If the Windrock Aristocrat clan and Een clan could take 2, he would definitely take the same number as well. In that case, it was as good as having nothing left for them to contend for. Fine, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to return and retrieve the treasures. The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Windrock Aristocrat clan and Een clan nodded their heads before their silhouettes flickered as they sped away. Their cultivation bases were already at the upper 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper, and the existence of the constellation fruits would allow them to break through to the perfection boundary of their mandates. They might even be able to comprehend true intents. Uncle, there's one more here. At this moment, Shang-Chi's silhouette flickered as he pointed towards the horizon. Over there, Su Feng and Ji Shui were currently flying away, yet the expert from the King's Manor called out, "The 2 of you, please wait a moment." Su Feng's silhouette trembled. He knew that he wouldn't be able to leave. He turned and stared at the experts flying over, his eyes staring straight at the expert from the King's Manor. Juniors are Su Feng from the Qinghua Mountain and junior sister Ji Shui. Our only constellation fruit was obtained through our own strength. Senior, it wouldn't be too good if we snatch it away forcefully. An outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain actually dares to speak to me in this manner? Hand it over. The expert from the King's Manor, Shang Xian, had a cultivation base at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and was the grandson of the old king. It was just that the position of king had yet to be inherited by him, but given his status, why would he care about an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain? Su Feng's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold, after which, he unwillingly handed over the constellation fruit. Humph. Shang Xian kept the constellation fruit with a wave of his hand as he coldly glanced at Su Feng. Senior, we'll meet again in the future. Su Feng clasped his hands as he coldly spoke, after which, he and Ji Shui turned and departed together, their hearts filled with an intense hatred. Senior, what is this 10,000 miles tracking mirror they spoke of? Ji Shui asked Su Feng. This treasure can track the aura of a person, locking onto their location. When Qin Wentian battled, he left behind traces of his aura. Hence, they were able to use this treasure to track him down. Su Feng replied, his words causing Ji Shui's countenance to stiffen. Doesn't that mean Brother Qin is in danger? That would depend on his good fortune. This time around he snatched away 7 constellation fruits under the noses of so many geniuses, and even killed so many people. How could the major powers of the Xian King city not be enraged? They would definitely not spare him. Su Feng's words caused Ji Shui to feel a trace of worry in her heart. Would the young man in white with unparalleled talent be able to escape this calamity? Just like what those people had predicted, although Qin Wentian's divine inscription scrolls could allow him to teleport, he was after all only a 4th-rank divine inscriptionist. It was extremely taxing for him to inscribe divine inscriptions, and he could only teleport a few hundred miles away in a random direction. But even so, it was sufficient to shake off those people. On a mountain slope about 400 miles away from those people, abruptly, spatial fluctuations could be felt as a white-robed silhouette appeared. It was none other than Qin Wentian. At this moment, his aura was fluctuating wildly, and his white robes were stained with blood. His body exuded an aura of weakness, yet his eyes shone with a brilliant light. His pitch-black pupils were as resplendent as the constellations in the night sky. This place is only a few hundred miles away. I have to continue advancing. If not, I'll be easily tracked. Qin Wentian silently mused as his silhouette flickered. Although he teleported a few hundred miles away in an instant, given the speed of a 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, a distance of 500 miles wasn't a problem. However, even Qin Wentian himself didn't know where he was. It would be extremely difficult for them to track him, but for the sake of caution, he chose a direction and continued advancing. A few hours later, Qin Wentian arrived at a desolate mountain. He sat down cross-legged as Little Rascal squatted beside him and spat out a constellation fruit. This was none other than the constellation fruit that contained a powerful mandate of demons. If it's useful to you, just eat it. Qin Wentian spoke to Little Rascal when he sensed the mandate of demons. Yeah. Little Rascal nodded its head and actually chomped down on the constellation fruit, swallowing it whole. Qin Wentian also took out 6 constellation fruits. Because they had already been plucked, although the constellation fruit still contained a powerful mandate of demons within, they wouldn't be able to attack him. 2 spatial constellation fruits, these belong to Qing. I'm afraid she wouldn't be able to find me in a short period of time. Qin Wentian kept the spatial constellation fruit as he glanced at the other 4 constellation fruits that contain the mandate of Great Earth as well as the one that caused the hearts of those who looked at it to pound wildly. Such a powerful mandate of demons. Although it isn't the mandate I cultivate, I can still comprehend it frequently. Qin Wentian kept the constellation fruits. After the consecutive battles, his body was extremely weak. It wasn't the time for him to comprehend the constellation fruits yet. You swallowed that crimson-eyed demonic beast. Purgatory, will it be able to return? Qin Wentian gently stroked Little Rascal's head. Little Rascal nodded its head as it squeaked, causing a gentle smile to flicker in Qin Wentian's eyes. Purgatory, was it about to appear? Retrieving a pile of Yuan meteor stones, he placed them on the ground as he casually laid down on the ground, entering the dreamscape to cultivate. The rate at which he could absorb astral energy would be even faster. As night descended, the heavenly mountain range was filled with moisture. Astral light flashed as several beams of astral light cascaded downwards, absorbed by the silhouette lying on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. The mountain range was so quiet that it was terrifying. When Qin Wentian opened his eyes, he saw 2 silhouettes beside him. Other than Little Rascal, there was also a purgatory vermilion bird. Upon seeing Qin Wentian opening his eyes, the purgatory vermilion bird let out a long screech as it soared into the air. Qin Wentian inclined his head, only to see the purgatory vermilion bird circling above his head unceasingly, as though it was extremely excited. After a long time, it landed on his shoulder and flapped its gigantic wings, causing Qin Wentian's body to waver unstably, causing him to smile bitterly. Little Rascal, well done. Qin Wentian glanced at Little Rascal in front of him. Little Rascal leaped up and landed on his thighs, wagging its tail and raising its head. That complacent look on its face made it seem as though it was asking for credit. Busy. But at this instant, a ferocious might erupted forth from the purgatory vermilion bird. It soared into the air, staring at the horizon as it let out a long screech. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows as his perception gushed forth. After which, several silhouettes appeared in his perception. Lingering ghosts. A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. He didn't expect these people to be able to find him here. His silhouette flickered as he shot forth like an arrow, instantly appearing in the distance. Ahead of him, the 6 heavens chosen brought many experts with them as they inclined their heads and stared at him. Do you think you can survive? Shang-Chi coldly snorted. Their bodies split up as the sword intent radiating from Qin Wentian churned unceasingly. But at this moment, a terrifying sealing energy suddenly erupted forth from a middle-aged man. In this vast space, a screen of light seemed to have appeared around him. Not good. Qin Wentian abruptly turned his gaze onto the middle-aged man. That middle-aged man had actually concealed his aura, and under his perception he was actually a 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Not only that, this sealing energy seemed to have isolated this entire space. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.